Happy Hump Day, everybody. Welcome to the Sean O'Connell Show on ESPN 700 and 92.1 FM. Happy to be here with you. Beautiful day in Salt Lake City. The sun is shining. Your kids are either out of school or they're probably having that last meaningless week of school where it's just about sending home art projects and field days. I think it is high school graduation day for a lot of the high schools around here, either that or tomorrow. We're coming down to the end of the school year, and that's not always a great time of year for sports, honestly, but you've got the Stanley Cup playoffs, some really interesting things happening. You've got the NBA playoffs with the Western Conference Final shaping up, Eastern Conference Final already in the books, and actually in the Stanley Cup playoffs, we had the end of the Western Conference Final last night. We're going to talk about that a lot on the show today. Adrian Denny swinging by at 1 o'clock for some Between the Pipes. You've got French Open on right now. If you're a tennis fan and you're feasting your eyes on the iconic red clay of Roland Garros, right now it's Novak Djokovic. Looks like he's up 2-1 in second round play. So plenty of things to digest. The spring football meetings that have gone conference by conference. The SEC is up on deck, and the SEC always generates headlines. They continue to oblige and do the same thing. You've got Vanderbilt's head coach saying it's national championship or bust at Vanderbilt. You've got Georgia's head coach Kirby Smart talking about, hey, we might just take our ball and go home. If we don't like the way these things are happening, we might just leave. Separate ourselves and play on our own. Which, by the way, for the SEC, I think would actually be a pretty successful business model in the South. I think if the SEC created its own thing, did its own league, and maybe they snag Miami and North Carolina and Clemson, and they steal the cream of the crop potentially from the ACC, and they become like a 20 or 22 team super league, and they just have their own rules, their own salary cap, their own collective bargaining, their own whatever. I could see it working for the SEC. The problem is, it would be a regionalized product. It would be Canadian Football League. It would be MLS soccer, right? The world's soccer fans don't pay attention to what happens in the MLS. The SEC, by separating themselves, could peel off and be successful, but they would be less than they are right now. Because being the second best conference, traditionally the best conference, in a national sporting landscape is a lot better than being the biggest fish in your own individualized, small, even regionalized pond. Even if you're Texas and the Texas, Oklahoma, I should say, and all of the Southeast, we already begrudgingly swallow SEC football out here in the West. In California, it's the same. In the entire Midwest, it's the same. We all watch it, but we're just like, oh, SEC. If you separate, there's no reason to watch the SEC.
Isn't that just kind of going backwards to OC? Like, isn't
100%.
that what we had in like the 30s, 40s, 50s, 60s, 70s, whatever, where it's like, this is so great because this is so great. We have our own backyard type thing. Then we started to go super national. And now it's like, let's go back to what we had. That's what was better. It's like you could have just kept it. Like
well,
I
think
the national is probably better, but I don't know.
I think it's best to have a national competition, a nationwide competition that truly involves the entire nation. I think that the right thing to do was to make sure that not to give a participation trophy out, but I think the right thing to do for college football and for college athletics as a whole was to engage everybody. Part of the reason that March Madness is so fascinating and such a big moneymaker, but more importantly, is such a cultural event, is because there's a reason for everybody to care. Now, for a lot of people, March Madness is not even about rooting for your favorite team, supporting your favorite conference, supporting your favorite university, supporting your favorite player. For a lot of people, March Madness is just about being engaged in the company bracket pool It's about trying to, win a bet with your friends. It's about those first weekend hangouts where you're just watching basketball game after basketball game after basketball game.
It's watching for the chaos, too.
Yeah, it's about Cinderella stories, which are kind of dead now. But that was a genius marketing plan that came out of the desire to have a more universal competition, to have a true tournament. Let's battle this thing out, and the best will rise to the top. And 9 years out of 10 in the history of the college basketball tournament, the teams that were in the Final Four were teams you expected to be in the Final Four. And when there was an outlier, that was just a fun story.
Yeah. And then they would often get blown out in the national semifinals. Like,
you had a good run, George Washington.
We probably would have loved a blue blood in there to give this a better game, but there was a great story. The reason I bring up, isn't it like going backwards, and you could have just kept that, is it sounds a lot like Seton, one of the former Danette on the Dan Patrick Show, or is it too bad he ended up leaving?
Yeah, it's weird. It's weird. Like, I like the Dan Patrick Show. I still think that's kind of the gold standard. And obviously you can listen to it right here in the mornings on ESPN 700, 92 FM. But, we are people, I think, in my age group and older, we're resistant to change.
Yeah.
And that's happening.
It's a little different now.
You're now down 2 staple Danettes.
Yeah, it's a little different now. It's still same great show, but just anyway, Seton recently left to do another role within the Dan Patrick Show universe there, just not on air. But he would always bring up, it's hilarious hearing people say, since everything has been debundled, right, with like TV, for example, now you have to go to all these different apps to get TV. There's certain things like YouTube TV, and if you still got satellite TV, you got all the things you still want in the traditional way, right? But he's saying, oh, it'd be great if my podcasts were just on the radio. And he's like, yeah, that's the radio.
You have that. It's called live radio.
It's called the radio. Like, so anyway, I was thinking of that as I'm saying, it's funny that the SEC is maybe thinking of going back to super regionalization thing because we're bigger than everybody else, SEC, because it's like, wait, you're going backwards in time. You could have just had that the whole time.
Well, it's also
very strange.
It's also, and maybe this is, we shouldn't paint the entire SEC with the same brush because there's some disagreement happening right now in the SEC.
16 schools. There's disagreements.
There's 9 of them that did support one expanded college football playoff model. There's 7 who liked it another way. Whatever. So Kirby Smart is the head coach of, most recently, the dominant force in SEC football, so we listen to him a little bit more. And if I don't get it my way, I will take my ball and go home mentality is something that we kind of always accuse the SEC of without a ton of proof, right? We always just assumed these were front runners, spoiled frat kids, the guys that were just like, well, I want to play by my own rules. And for a long time they did. I won't listen to any argument against that. For a long time, they got away with things that other teams wouldn't do or couldn't do or shouldn't do. The SEC was just kind of running the thing the way they wanted to, and they don't like the fact that the gap closed. They don't. And, of course, they don't. Nobody does, right? When you're an industry leader, when you're the biggest, strongest, fastest kid in elementary school, and then everyone else hits puberty, and suddenly you're just like, oh, crap. My advantage actually just came because I was just a big kid. And now there's a bunch of big kids. And now we're in a level of sports where size matters less than speed does. And you're just like, crap. Anyone who is an above average size boy, I don't know how it is with girls. I can only speak from anecdotal experience. Anyone who is an above average size boy in elementary school, at some point you had this. You had this moment, right? Playground basketball when you were in 5th grade, if you were the tallest kid on the playground, was easy for you because nobody's that skilled.
Why are you talking so much about me, OC? Once I got to like junior high, middle school is what we have in St. George. I was like feeling very inferior all of a sudden. It's like I used to be the biggest guy in my elementary school.
My best friend from elementary school, middle school, high school moved in fourth grade. I moved in third grade. Okay, I moved in third grade, and I wasn't a good basketball player. We didn't play basketball in Minnesota, where I moved from. I wasn't a good basketball player. I was okay at all the other stuff, the playground kickball and the wall ball and those fun things. We would play, much to the chagrin of the raspy-voiced, like something out of a cartoon recess monitor. We would play tackle football at Willow Canyon Elementary School, and I was untackleable because I was a sturdy, like above-average size kid. You couldn't tackle me. I was like, there was me, and there was a Samoan dude, and it was like they wouldn't let us be on the same team because you weren't able to tackle us because nobody's skilled.
Dominating, huh?
Nobody is skilled when you're in third grade. Nobody knows how to really tackle. You're too dumb to be like, well, I'll just tackle him by his legs, right? You hang on the guy's shoulders and you jump on their back and they run for 10 more yards before you fall, right? Well, my best friend Trevor Moss, shout out to Moss, he moved in fourth grade and he was a great athlete already, right? He was fast and he was strong, and it was just like, whoa, what is this? And suddenly he becomes the best kid. And then as you get older and older and older, a skill element gets involved, and now that speed matters even more, and you're just like, crap, my elementary school dominance is waning if I don't get faster and more skilled. That's what's happening with the SEC.
It's an underrated, tough thing to go through. Now that you're talking about it, I'm like, I remember how inferior I started to feel as I got older and been like, oh, I'm actually not the best at this thing that I used to think I was the best at.
My guy, Mike Wahlberg, okay? Mike, love you.
Shout out.
He came into elementary school, moved into the boundaries, same as I did, same as Trevor did, and he was huge. In fifth grade, he was like 6 feet tall. He was a giant, right? For years, he was the best football player we had because he was a giant. And then we got to about 8th grade, and skills starts to be more involved. Who's actually running conditioning, who's actually working out, who's actually got the mental grit, who actually wants to be playing football. Turns out my guy Mike Wahlberg, he was more of a band. He was more of like a music, like wanted to play guitar type of guy. That big body doesn't mean anything if you don't have the desire. That's what's happened to the SEC, okay? The SEC is going through that puberty, elementary school to middle school to high school transition where their dominance that used to be solely size-based, and for the practical folks out there, the size I'm talking about is the size of the booster pocketbooks and the size of the booster willingness to skirt the old rules. That is gone now. That advantage, everyone else hit puberty. The Big Ten was the late bloomer that the SEC was like, oh, crap.
Yeah, they were the Big Ten was the always formidable but never the best in the last like 20, 30 years, right? Now they're the best.
The Big Ten was like the wholesome kid whose family wasn't hardcore dedicated to sports, right?
But we're really good at them.
They were just happened to be good at them. And then the other dads, right? The dad that always bought their kid the best cleats and the fanciest baseball bat and had the new helmet and put the visor on the helmet and had every Under Armour sleeve and glove. Like those dads were the SEC dads. And they were always like noticing and wary of like, man, that kid over there, if we give that kid this $400 baseball bat that I bought my kid, he'll be hitting dingers all day. That happened to the SEC.
It's like the Big Ten, because they had bagmen, absolutely. But it's like the Big Ten was way less apt to break those kind of rules.
Well, and honestly,
and now that it's legal, they're thriving. Maybe I don't know.
The Big Ten was like the 4 power schools in the Big Ten were just as willing to break the rules, and that's why Michigan is Michigan, Ohio State's Ohio State. But I'm using the Big Ten as the one, like as the visual example of the kid that came back from the 8th grade break in 9th grade and he hit a 6-inch growth spurt. Yeah. But it's not just the Big Ten. The Big Ten is the best example right now. It's actually all of college football. The SEC used to be able to stash the guys. You've heard these arguments for 2 years now, 3 years now. The SEC used to have Alabama's running back room used to be 8 NFL guys.
Wasn't Trent Richardson Mark Ingram's backup to start?
Yes.
Or something crazy like that. And then he ended up being the best running back in college football by the time his career ended.
There was a time where Alabama had literally 6 NFL running backs in the room at different stages of their careers, right? And now that doesn't happen as readily because there are other schools out there, because NIL's a thing. There are other schools out there that are just like, yes, you can go to Alabama, and yes, someday you'll maybe be the Heisman Trophy winning most prominent running back in Crimson Tide history, or you can, instead of sitting behind sitting behind Mark Ingram, you can come here and you can play right now, and we're going to pay you $800,000 to do it, and that has changed the scale, that has changed the balance in college football. Unfortunately, BYU, Utah, Texas Tech, even with their huge spending, they're finding out that it's actually harder, even with money, to close those gaps than people have given it credit. And when you spend the money, the big money, on certain players, and that's 2-3 years of a decent run, it still doesn't mean that you're going to win a championship. The SEC is facing this reality where they're just like, the success that I once had is no longer guaranteed to me, and I don't like that the rules are no longer favoring me, because the rules in the past favored the SEC by the SEC looking the other way when it pertained to rules. Now, you've got the most prominent coach at the current most prominent football program saying, fine, we will take our ball and go home. If we don't find an expanded college football playoff format that we like, we being the SEC, if we don't find recruiting rules that we like, again, in this conference, if we don't like them, if we don't find some type of salary cap structure, some sustainability model, so I don't have to have $40 million for my roster this year, $50 million next year, $60 million the year after that, $70 million by the time we hit 2030, then we'll just do something different. We'll do something on our own. And it's an immature response. I think he probably doesn't mean it. I think he's probably just trying to be as inflammatory as he can to say, hey, do something about this. Because, again, he lives in a region where when a college football coach of his stature says something like that, lawmakers, court officials start being like, oh, boy, we better fix this. We better figure this out. That's not necessarily true in Chicago, not necessarily true in Los Angeles, not true in Portland, Oregon. I don't even think it's true in Salt Lake City, if we're being honest, right? If Kalani Sitake started going, you know what? I need the rules to change, or we're going to take our ball and go home in the Big 12. Or we at BYU are probably just going to do things differently. We're going to become independent again.
Going back to independence.
We'll go back to independence. We'll schedule games against this new SEC entity, and we'll be on television that way. I mean, maybe that causes a ripple on Capitol Hill to where there's some kind of movement. I don't know. In the South, you get bipartisan bills.
Yeah.
When a coach says something like this, suddenly the hands reach across the aisle and everyone's kumbaya and just well, I hate you and you hate me, and I don't like your politics and you don't like mine, but we both love Crimson Tide football and we love them Georgia Bulldogs, so come on, let's vote together. And it's crazy.
Yeah, look no further than the Louisiana governor firing the AD at LSU before they hired Lane Kiffin, right?
Yes.
That stuff happens all the time in the South. We can't even fathom it here.
The highest political official in that state happened to be like, I don't trust this person to hire the right guy at my university, at this university that we need to be good and we need to be a representative of the state. So we're going to step in here. And
I can't imagine Governor Cox doing that.
It's unique to the
BYU
South, right?
Utah.
It's special in the South. But on its own, if Alabama, Georgia, and maybe they pulled Miami, whoever, if the SEC as we know it were to secede, and I'm using that word on purpose, from the general nation of football, absolutely people would watch it. I would still tune in every once in a while for a Texas-Georgia football game, but
Iron Bowl's always great. Yeah.
the criticism then, right, the risk that you run then is, first of all, there's not actual emotional buy-in when you're just fighting amongst yourselves. It's the same way, like, again, I don't like to get too political. You only care as an American citizen about international conflicts that the United States are involved in, right? That's just the nature of being a human. If, Malaysia gets into a skirmish with the Philippines, you're probably not overly opinionated one way or another.
You maybe don't even know about it at all.
If your favorite university, or like we'll use Utah and BYU as an example, if Utah and BYU are playing against Arkansas, Texas, Auburn, Alabama, Miami, we have feelings about those contests, right? If Miami is playing against Ohio State, we have fewer feelings about those contests, but we still do because we have some level of awareness of what this means on the national stage. It's a national championship type game, that kind of stuff. If Washington is playing against Oregon, we care because they used to be conference mates, right? But even that has less cachet than it used to because now those are Big Ten teams. And if you regionalize college football to an extreme, the way this thread is coming off, what you're doing is you're taking away the buy-in, the emotional buy-in from the rest of the country. And the Big 12, by the way, is the conference that can least afford that. The Pac-12 died because nobody cared enough in their region, right? The Big 12 would be on the most tenuous footing because they just don't have the resources. If the SEC is like, we're doing our own thing, and then the Big Ten's like, cool, we're going to do our own thing then the Big 12 would be like, well, what? Then you're playing against the new Pac-12, which is the old Mountain West. And guess who's not watching that? Anyone east of the Mississippi. So what you need as a university, what you need as an athletic department, what you need is a tiered system of achievement that you're going, a tiered goal system, right? You want to dominate your state first, then you want to dominate your region, then you want to dominate nationally. And you want to check those boxes. If the SEC and Kirby Smart are saying, like, we're going to dominate our state first, we're going to dominate our region, and we're not even going to give a bleep about doing it nationally because we don't like your rules, that's a self-inflicted wound that the SEC, even the mighty SEC, cannot afford.
And they probably think if we dominate our region, we will dominate nationally, and
the last 3 years have proven that to be untrue.
It's not. It's a falsehood that if you go down that road, like you say, could be pretty dire for you outside of the Southeastern Conference.
And then
footprint.
Inevitably, after you sort of like shell up and say, we're going to do our own thing here, you're going to come down the road and your network partners are going to be like, guess what, guys? Like, the ratings are not as good as they used to be because turns out that a lot of people in Los Angeles and Chicago and New York used to watch your SEC football games when you were part of this whole like national thing. And now there's a lot less of that because you're just the Confederacy of football down here. You've become an enemy.
They've seceded from the College Football Union.
So now, like, these households care less. So inevitably, after 3 years or 2 years or 5 years or however long, it'd be like, okay, so here's what we're going to do now. Now we're going to take our regionalized league, the SEC, that has its own rules, has its own salary cap, has its own whatever, and the champion of this is going to challenge somebody else. And all of us are going to be like, we had this 5 years ago. It was called a college football playoff. It was called bowl season 100 years ago. That's the point of why we did those things in the first place. The pendulum swings all the time in media, swings all the time in pop culture, swings all the time in sports. Right now, the SEC, of all conferences, I never would have thought that this would be the one that's like, this system is not working for us, we're going to go home. If Brett Yormark came out with that at Big 12 meetings, it was just like, guys, We can't compete. So if we don't get a better system, we are going to break away and we're going to do our own thing. It would actually kind of make sense. It would be still a bad idea, but there would actually be some reasoning behind it, some logic behind it. The SEC doing this is just a tantrum. It's petulance. I don't get it. Enough ranting about the SEC. We have a big show. Really fascinating Game 5 in the Western Conference Finals of the NBA playoffs yesterday. Even more fascinating Game 4 in the Western Conference Finals of the Stanley Cup playoffs. We're going to be talking about those as the show progresses. We have a professional sports franchise in Utah now in the Athletes Unlimited Softball League, the Utah Talons. Hannah Flippen, former Ute, is going to join us next to talk about her role with the Utah Talons. We're also going to have Cindy Ball Malone, their head coach. That'll be at noon, 11:30 and noon for those guests. Cindy Ball Malone is, by the way, the UCF head ball coach as well, head softball coach. So we're gonna get into some conversation about the Utah Talons ahead of their opening day matchup on June 9th. And, of course, I already mentioned we have Between the Pipes with Adrian Denny in our 1 o'clock hour. The college football landscape, it's talking season, and it happens to be threat season. I saw an article alluding to this. It's threat season right now in college football.
Yeah, the Iowa State AD of all people started this all off, being like, "Hey, why don't you just make good on your threats?"
Yeah, you want to go, then go. Relax. Brendan Sorsby. Well, we did not have a meaningful Brendan Sorsby update yesterday on this show. We got breaking news, the most predictable of all breaking news about the NCAA decision regarding his eligibility and whether or not his waiver would be granted. So you could probably guess, but we'll have updates on all that. It's a loaded show here on Utah's #1 Sports Talk, brought to you by our friends at Big Willie's, the Sean O'Connell Show. By the way, if you want to go watch some French Open, you want to have a lovely lunch out on the patio, Big Willie's is running lunch specials and drink specials every single day. 1717 South Main. When you go, tell them OC sent you. They'll take extra special good care of you. It's the perfect way to break up your workday. You just head down there. It's close to everything in Salt Lake City. It's not downtown, but it's just right down there on 17th South and Main Street. You head down, you go out, sit out on the patio, you have a cold beverage, you have one of their incredible meals. You take 45 minutes, an hour, you reset your day, you bask in a little bit of sunlight, you go snap a photo in front of the Mammoth mural they have on the west side of the building. Maybe you shoot around a pool if you've got time for that, and you head back for the second half of your workday. It's a great, great, great plan, and I just gave it to you, courtesy of Big Willie's, our presenting sponsor on the Sean O'Connell Show. Hannah Flippen of the Utah Talons joins us next. It's ESPN 700 and 92.1 FM. All right, going a little bit off the beaten path of what we usually talk about with NBA, NHL, college football, et cetera, here on the Sean O'Connell Show. The Utah Talons, Athletes Unlimited Softball League, are defending champions in this fledgling league, this brand new league. Hannah Flippen happens to be one of their best players, former Ute, former Pac-12 Player of the Year, former Defensive Player of the Year in the Pac-12, and last year's Defensive Player of the Year in Athletes Unlimited Softball League. And she's kind enough right now to talk to us ahead of the Utah Talons beginning their season in early June. Opening day is Tuesday, June 9th against the Rosemont Bandits. They play at the University of Utah Dumke Family Stadium. Hannah Flippen, welcome to the show. How are you?
Hi, thanks for having me. Super excited to talk about the Talons and the AUSL.
Yeah, we're excited. I happen to also be involved with like a kind of a startup professional athletics endeavor. It's in the MMA space. We're trying to compete with the UFC. And so I'm really, really fascinated with all of these like startup leagues. And so if you don't mind me rewinding all the way back to before the inaugural season and, you know, the phone calls you're getting, the sort of opportunity presented to yourself when you find out that not only is Athletes Unlimited going to have a team in Utah, but they want you to play for Utah, a place where obviously you're very familiar with the softball scene here and you played your college ball here. Tell me what that process was like for you, what was going through your mind as this opportunity presented itself.
Yeah, Athletes Unlimited has evolved over the last 5 or 6 years now. I think this is the 6th year that the business has been up and running. And so we started off as kind of like a fantasy softball league where you played on a different team every weekend. And the idea was for that league to be supplemental to a traditional league. And unfortunately, at that time, COVID had folded the NPF, the National Pro Fast Pitch League, which so there's just been a long tradition of the softball league starting up and then folding because they don't have the financial backing and the business side of things kind of nailed down. And so now we're here some years later, and Athletes Unlimited has put together a traditional league where we have 6 teams, 6 home locations, and that is something that we've been missing for the last 10 years probably, of some really solid foundation in a professional softball league. So I'm so excited to have a traditional league back. And then on top of that, for it to be in Utah, it's just in my wildest dreams, I never would have wrote this. And so for that to be the true statement that's going to happen is I'm going to be a Utah Talon and play at my alma mater. I'm so grateful. I feel so lucky to not only play in Utah, but be one of 3 alumni in the league that's going to play at their alma mater. So I'm like double lucky on top of lucky. And so super excited for Salt Lake City to have a pro softball team.
So women's athletics is obviously not only it's not only a business on the rise, but participation for young girls. I'm a father of 3 girls. Participation in all sports is increasing for young women. And softball has had this long-standing sort of place as a great option for women's participation. The Women's College World Series gets really good ratings now and a lot of hype and a lot of attendance. I think they do a good job with the broadcast and things like that. And you know, you've seen the growth of your own sport. You've seen the growth of other women's sports, especially in kind of the pop culture and business space. Do you feel like softball can carve out a nice, sustainable spot in the professional ranks now, the same way they have with college sport?
Yeah, absolutely. I think that we will do that. We are going to carve our spot just like women's basketball has, just like women's soccer has. I mean, they are kind of the models for us and the inspiration for us. Like they did it, we can do it too. So to have those women fight for their sport, just like we're going to, it's been a real inspiration and just like a model of hope almost that we can be that. And we are trending in the right direction. You're right. The Women's College World Series and the college game in general is booming right now. And so we're definitely trying to steal a little bit of that thunder and take those big names out of that league once they come out of college into our league, and hope we continue to grow and kind of roll off the college seasons back and create some of that momentum in our own league, which we saw last year tenfold. Like we had sold out stadiums everywhere we went. It was truly, truly amazing. I've never played in the professional league that had that many fans consistently all summer long. So I'm super excited for what this summer is going to look like and how much it's going to be showing growth from last year to this year.
how much do you appreciate, playing the role of pioneer? There's people who are just like, look, just give me a chance to play the game I love, the sport I love.
Hmm.
You're obviously willing to come talk about it, so I imagine you don't mind
Yeah.
being a mouthpiece, right? But
Yeah.
like, how important is the pioneer role for you, the trailblazer in this sport for women who have like you mentioned, there's been plenty of attempts to make something like this work long term for softball and for other women's sports, but now feels like the time where it'll actually work, if that makes sense. How
Right.
important is that
Yeah.
pioneer role for you?
Yeah, I mean, getting into it, never thought I would be a pioneer. I was just wanted to be wanted to keep playing, and so I think now I'm in a place where when I got into the league, I was like, "Oh, I'm playing to grow the sport. I'm playing to grow the sport," and didn't really know what that meant. And to where I am now, as a pioneer, as we're moving this league forward, I can truly say that. Like, I am playing to grow the sport and grow the league. And when I was a young kid, I wasn't looking up to softball players. I was looking up to MLB players. The San Diego Padres were my favorite team, and so now to be a team that this young generation can look up to and dream to be exactly what we are is so exciting. And I almost wish that I can be a little kid again and go to all these pro softball games because I am such a fan of the sport. And so to have this be a dream for athletes now is, I think, the most important part and the coolest part about it is that these little girls have a dream to be pro softball players. They don't have to dream to be MLB baseball players. They can be pro softball players. So I think that's really special. And being a pioneer of the league is just kind of fallen into place. It's nothing that I sought out to do, but I just wanted to play softball for as long as I can, and this is where it's led me. And I'm grateful and I'm happy to be a pioneer of this league because I truly believe in it, and I believe that all little girls and little athletes should have the dream to play pro softball.
There was a time in my life where I was a professional fighter, and when I told my parents I was going to pursue this thing, that the first time I did it, it was going to pay me $100 to go get punched in the face. My parents were just like, "What are you doing?" But my parents were never All-American softball players. Your mom was. What is
Yeah.
what was the conversation with your family like when you're like, "Yeah, I'm gonna spend a significant amount of time and effort on pro softball," which didn't have an obvious and viable path when you started?
Yeah. I mean, I think that they saw me as a young athlete and they saw how much I love softball. And so thankfully, I have the best parents and the best support system in the world to where they're like, heck yeah, play. We want to follow you and we want you to keep playing. And I joke that my mom lives vicariously through me because she was a softball player and there was a pro league when she was around, but it was nothing like this. And so for her to see what we're doing now, I know that she's so proud of where softball is now and so proud of me to be a pioneer of the league. And it is crazy when I tell people that aren't my family that don't get it. They're like, "You're a professional softball player? I didn't know that was a thing." Well, so then I educate them. And that's part of the pioneering and part of the storytelling is trying to get the word out that there's professional softball and it is a real career path. It is a real dream that people can have. But if you're around long enough, you get it and you see it and you're like, totally, this makes sense. But if you're just new here, then get on board because we're going fast and we're going far and it's going to be really exciting to watch. So, yes, super grateful to have awesome parents that have never doubted this dream of mine and have just continued to support me all the way through.
Hannah Flippin is our guest right now on the Sean O'Connell Show. Former Utah softball all everything infielder, and now she's with the Utah Talons, our very own professional softball team here. Their first game is Tuesday, June 9th, up there at the Dumke Family Stadium on the campus of the University of Utah. And as Hannah mentioned, the same place she played her college ball, she's playing as a pro, which is really cool and really unique. Going back to the college conversation, we talk a lot of Utes. We're the home of the Utes on this station. We talk a lot about college sports. And as you are well aware, the landscape has changed very, very drastically in all college sports. And we focus heavily on the revenue-producing stuff. But even in softball, if you're a top-flight player now in college softball, that comes with money. Now, you didn't graduate long enough ago to be like the folks in my generation are just like, oh, man, we were there 100 years ago, and so none of this was even a possibility. You finished at the University of Utah like not so long before these conversations about paying athletes started in earnest, and people like you are now making money even in college softball. And it doesn't have to be millions of dollars to make it relevant, because the life of a college athlete is not always super glamorous when you're just on scholarship. So I wanted to get your thoughts on how you've seen the college game change since you left.
Yeah, it's crazy. We could sit here and talk hours about how the college game has changed. And I do get asked the question because I missed that window of like, well, what would you do if you got offered X amount of dollars? And I can't even imagine being a college athlete right now, because I loved my time at Utah so much, and I loved my coaching staff and my teammates, that I don't know if there was a dollar sign put in front of me if I would jump ship or not. But that's something that kids are having to make that decision on. And sometimes it's life-changing money, but I don't know. It's a totally different world, and I feel for the college athletes that are trying to make the best decisions for themselves and do what they can. But it is crazy times, and I'm happy to be out of it and happy that I don't have to make those decisions. But at the same time, I'm so grateful for the experience that I had. And I think anytime you can go play a college sport at any level, regardless of if you're making money, if you're a walk-on, it is such an unreal experience. And I think everybody should go and find their spot and find their home and play college sports, because it really does change your life and help you grow as a human. And at the end of the day, like, I think college sports are like what shapes my life and what teaches me life lessons. I always say, like, I have no idea how people learn things without sports. Like, how do you learn something if you don't have teammates? And so I'm so grateful for my experience and wouldn't change it for the world.
When I was trying to be a professional fighter, I always had a day job. Now, my day job was in sports media, but professional softball is not yet a lucrative and glamorous endeavor. Do you have a day job?
I don't this year, actually. Last year I did. I had a part-time job as a neuropsychologist, or sorry, not a neuropsychologist, a neurotechnician for a neuropsychologist, which is a lot of fancy words just to say that I helped a doctor test patients coming in with memory loss, brain injuries, Alzheimer's, dementia, things like that. So that was my part-time job. And I was working for a teammate's mom who owned the practice. And so it's all about connections. But a lot of the athletes in our league either coach in the collegiate level or give lessons or coach high school teams. And so we just kind of all find the ways to make the ends meet and get to continue living this dream that we all want so badly.
That sounds like a fascinating part-time job you had. Was that your field of study in school?
It was. I studied psychology and family studies in school. I thought I was going to be a teacher, an elementary school teacher coming out of school. It's what my mom did. I'm really passionate about teaching and about kids and youth. And so that's kind of where my college studies were. And so psychology, not too far off. And it is really interesting. You meet so many different people, so many walks of life that come in, and they're just there to get help and try and figure out how they can make their lives better. And it's been really fun and really humbling to be in an office with fluorescent lights from 9 to 5. It's a lot different than being out of the softball field. So I appreciate the experience.
What is the Utah Talons practice schedule like? Give me a sense of just how much of your life this pursuit is consuming right now with practice and, BP and all these things.
Yeah, the pro softball world only happens kind of over the summer right now because we're such a short season, because they can't support us year round financially. And so a lot of the training in the off season is individual. And so my home base is in Tucson right now. I go work out at the University of Arizona. Thankfully, they let me kind of tag along to some of their things and work out in the weight room there. So for about 9 months of the year, everybody is kind of on their own, or if they live around people in our league, then they kind of train together. But the real grind happens when we get together starting now for the next 10 days. We're in Vero Beach, Florida. We're at the Jackie Robinson Training Center, and we're going to do 2-a-days. We're hitting in the morning, hitting on the field in the evenings, doing weight training in between, having team meetings. And so these next 10 days are really where we're going to try and come together as a team and bond and gel so that we can start our run to winning another championship.
How well do you know Cindy Ball-Malone? She's going to be our guest at about noon, so at about 15 minutes. the new Utah Talons head coach. How well do you know her already?
Yeah, Coach Bear, I have a good relationship with her. She's coached a couple of the USA women's softball teams that I've been on, and I've been fortunate enough to go out to UCF where she coaches now and work some camps with her. And so I have a good relationship with her, and I think she's great. I think she's exactly what the Talons need this year, somebody who coaches at a high level already and just is intelligent in all facets of the game. She was a pitcher who also hit, and so she kind of can dip her toe into both sides of the game, and just is a really mature coach as far as like what she asks from her current team. And so I think she's going to transition really well into the pro side. A lot of the coaches kind of struggle with like, well, it's professional softball now, and I don't want to treat them like kids. I don't want to treat them like my college team, but there's a fine line between how do we treat them like professionals, but still be able to coach them, because that's something that a lot of players in our league are looking for. Because we train so individually for 9 months out of the year, we're looking for somebody to come in and say, hey, you can do that better, or hey, here's what I'm seeing, try this out. And so I think they try and walk that fine line of not stepping on our toes because we are professionals, because we are adults, but kind of dipping our toe into this. We still want to be developed. And so I think Coach Bear is going to really walk that line perfectly, and I'm excited to spend a whole summer with her.
We might have a problem because there's now 2 Coach Bears in the professional ranks here in the state of Utah. The Utah Mammoth head coach, his nickname is Bear Turney.
Wow, it's perfect. It's like it's meant to be.
So we got 2 Bears. This is going to be We're going to only, you know what? Only one gets to keep the nickname. We're going to have a competition between the 2, and we'll figure out who gets to keep the nickname.
I love it. I love it.
Before I let you go, what about your own individual goals for the season? What do you have in your mind that you want to accomplish this year?
Yeah, I mean, always in my head, the team comes first, right? I want to win back-to-back championships with this team. I think it'd be really cool. We've already cemented ourselves in the history books as being the first team to do it, and so why not continue to do it and continue to put our name in the history books of back-to-back champions? But individually, I want to be the best shortstop in the league. I don't even know if that's what position I'm going to play. We haven't even practiced one day as a team, but played shortstop last year for the Talons. So just want to be the best player I can for my team, and I also have been like putting my own tangible or like countable goals into the future. I said I want to lead the league in doubles this year, and that Dumpke Family Softball Stadium's got some pretty good gaps in it, and so I think I got a good shot at that.
A little home field advantage because you know this field better than anyone else in the league probably.
Exactly, and it's so fun because the field is so big, and so there's plenty of places to get some doubles, and so I'm excited to play at home.
Well, Hannah, very much appreciate you giving us your time today. Good luck with the camp. Good luck with the upcoming opener. You know, like I said, I got 3 daughters. There's no reason I shouldn't be out there Tuesday, June 9th against the Rosemont Bandits to support former Utes like Hannah Flippin and, of course, the defending champions, the Utah Talons. Thanks again for joining us, Hannah. Have a good season.
Thank you. See you guys June 9th.
Hannah Flippin. Maybe your shortstop. Maybe she'll play second. Maybe she'll play third base, whatever. You probably want to keep her where she was the defensive player of the year, Pac-12 player of the year. She is an incredible softball player, a former Ute, and that was fun. I'm really interested to know how this league can build momentum because women's professional sports are having this protracted moment of growth, and there's real traction with the WNBA, with women's college sports that I think can translate for Athletes Unlimited Softball League. We will be talking to her head coach, Cindy Ball Malone, in just a few minutes. But the Hot Lunch is next here on the Sean O'Connell Show, ESPN 700 and 92.1 FM. Are we seeing a Victor Wembanyama heel turn? Is he going to become a villain, but one that you can root for? I love this intrigue coming out of a very fascinating Game 5 of the Western Conference Finals in the NBA playoffs, a game won by the Oklahoma City Thunder. Here in the hot lunch, by the way, head down to Big Willie's. Grab the lunch special today. Grab a drink. Tell them Mosi sent you. The daily drink specials are $4 or less every single day at Big Willie's, 1717 South Main. We saw this, right, on the broadcast last night. So, Victor Wembanyama getting subbed out, and he whispers some sweet nothings into the ears of his teammates. Who was it? Bismack Biyombo coming in. And the allegation or the assumption from some people is that Victor Wembanyama was saying, hey, I need you to foul hard. This game got a little chippy. This game got a little physical. And for whatever reason, Oklahoma City was just able to hit the timely shots every time that the San Antonio Spurs would put together a nice little run, try to come from behind, close it to within. I mean, late in the game, it was 10, 8, even earlier, 5 or 6 points. You would see somebody, Jared McCain, pull up from 3 and extend the lead again. So it was Mason Plumlee. It was Mason Plumlee and Bismack Biyombo that were checking in. And the whisper is that maybe Victor Wembanyama, as he's exiting, said, hey, go commit a hard foul or two on that guy. Now, I'm of the Ned Stark opinion that he who passes the sentence should swing the sword. Anyone understand that Game of Thrones reference? James, you're not a Game of Thrones guy yet, right?
No, I have watched him now.
Okay.
So I was
Jon Snow, he took that into his dad, Ned Stark.
Yeah.
He who passes the sentence must swing the sword. Jon Snow did the same thing 6 seasons later. I'm of the opinion that Wemby should do that. If Wemby wants somebody to get fouled hard, Wemby, we've seen you do it before. We've seen you get frustrated and throw an elbow. If you need somebody to be taken out, you're a giant. You could be the one to take him out. Now, if you're Mason Plumlee, if you're Bismack Biyombo, you probably love this. You probably love that you're coming in and they're like, one of the best players in the league, the de facto leader of your team is just like, I know that your actual contribution to this game is going to be relatively meaningless. I'm giving you a job to do. All right? It is the hockey enforcer thing. And you have heard on this show that I have demanded this role exist in NBA basketball. Now, I don't know that Jared McCain deserved this because Jared McCain wasn't being fake tough guy. He was just hitting shots that frustrated the heck out of the San Antonio Spurs. So that's probably not the right time to do it. For me, the enforcer should be deployed anytime someone gets a little out of pocket, thinks they're tougher than they are, thinks they know how to fight, or they're committing hard fouls of their own for no particular reason. But if Victor Wembanyama is the guy, he's the mafia boss now with the San Antonio Spurs, he's like, guys, we're going to lose this one, but go take that dude out.
Yeah, I disagree with Victor should be the one to do it because you can't have him thrown out of the game. We saw what happened. The Minnesota series nearly turned because he decided to take matters in his own hands. Charles Oakley was this guy for the 90s Knicks. Dennis Rodman would do that, but even Dennis Rodman was a little too valuable for the Bulls to survive and the Pistons to survive in the playoffs. You need a Mason Plumlee type. That's something that's been missing in these playoffs for the Spurs. And it's not been a thing in the NBA for a couple decades now. But Wemby, for whatever reason, is they're trying to be overly physical with him. Isaiah Hartenstein should be the one on the receiving end of this. He's wrestling with Wemby, and the refs aren't calling a thing. Someone needs to be Mason Plumlee, Bismack Biyombo need to come into the game and elbow him in the head or something. Be like, hey, get off our guy because obviously the refs are letting you do it. We're not going to let you do it.
I mean, if the refs aren't, that's kind of the thing. That's where it all came from in hockey, right?
Yeah.
Because referees, they call the penalty, but it's not proportionate to the foul. And so the team says 2 minutes in the box was not enough. When you get out of that box, you're going to get a
Coming
5-minute
after you.
major. You're going to get a double minor. We're going to fight. You're going to have to defend yourself. You're going to, and I'm, the enforcer comes in to defend the honor of the Sidney Crosby or the Connor McDavid or the Macklin Celebrini or whatever. A time-honored tradition that is becoming less and less of a thing in NHL hockey, but has never really been as much of a thing in the NBA, and certainly in modern NBA, not a lot. If Wemby loses this series, but he brings back and the NBA enforcer, and next year we have an Anthony Mason or a Charles Oakley or a Ben Wallace on every team in the NBA.
Antonio Davis for the Pacers.
I'm on board with that. Like,
Yeah.
if that's your contribution, Victor Wembanyama, I'm cool. Also, if you get kicked out of a game with 2 minutes left in the NBA, it's not like targeting in
No.
college football, right?
No, you just missed the 2 minutes of the game.
So Wemby could have done it.
Yeah, I mean, at that point you're talking about, but like in general, I'm like Wemby needs to keep his hands clean. He needs an enforcer type to do the dirty work for him, just like those '90s Knicks, the Pacers, and come to think of it was a lot of the Eastern Conference. So you didn't hear much about it in the West for whatever
The
reason.
Detroit Pistons used to just mug people, right? The Bill Laimbeer Pacers or Bill Laimbeer Pistons. Those old highlight reels are absolutely hilarious because every foul committed on those reels would be a flagrant 2 in today's NBA. Wemby, if you're taking a heel turn here, I love that this is the choice you're making to do. All right, we got to take a break here. That is the end of hour number 1. The Festival of Tees, by the way, still on, powered by the Utah Golf Association and brought to you by Mountain Home Services. We're giving away free rounds of golf. Make sure you stay tuned for your chance to win. Cindy Ball-Malone, Utah Talon's head coach. Coach Bear is her nickname. We'll have to address this right at the top of the conversation. It's the Sean O'Connell Show, ESPN 700 and 92.1 FM. Welcome back to the Sean O'Connell Show. Welcome to the start of hour number 2. And welcome in Cindy Ball Malone, Utah Talons head coach, the defending champion Utah Talons in another campaign in the Athletes Unlimited Softball League. Opening day, Tuesday, June 9th, against the Chicago Bandits at the University of Utah Dumke Family Stadium. Coach, thanks for giving us some time today. Welcome to the show. How are you?
I'm doing great. Thanks for having me.
We're going to start off with the most important thing here. We have to address the elephant in the bear in the room.
The bear in the room.
Your nickname is Coach Bear. Andre Tourney, the head coach of the Utah Mammoth, is affectionately referred to as Coach Bear. Is this town big enough for two bears?
Well, it better be, right? We've got to make that happen. But I do think we've got to have some type of face-off. I don't know if this bear here has been on ice, but we'll see. So.
Oh, that's awesome. We got to get you guys together, and I don't know, get all the Utah Mammoth out for opening day or something. Let's talk about. By the way, Coach Bear, this Coach Bear, also the head coach of UCF softball. So we'll talk about that a little bit in just a second. Utah Talons, like I already mentioned, your season begins in just a couple of weeks. We had Hannah Flippin on about half an hour ago, and she told us that you're about to embark on this kind of condensed training camp. What are your expectations for the sprint you're about to begin in Athletes Unlimited?
Yeah, I mean, really, I'm looking forward to just getting with them, starting to build relationships with some of the athletes that I haven't had, prior relationships with if it was USA softball or just through college and recruiting. So that's really my biggest expectation is building those relationships, finding out what they need. They're highly talented, as you know, like you said, reigning champs, and all they talk about is their eyes are set for another one. So it's just awesome to have such driven women, doing their thing on their own for a matter of months, and now they get to bring it to the table and be together. So that's I think it's just all good stuff that we're expecting.
I'm trying to figure out the right way to phrase this question because in an emerging league, right, in a sport that has a long-established tradition in the collegiate ranks but has not really until now hopefully found traction as a professional league, and you've been part of a lot of these efforts in the past. How comfortable are you? How much do you like, not only the ball itself, but like maybe being an evangelist for the sport and like trying to help sell this new league? I've been through some of this myself in my own career in a different sport, and it's not easy, right? There's some heavy lifting to be done, and sometimes you just want to focus on competition, and in your case on softball, but I don't want to put words in your mouth. So is this a role you relish?
Oh, absolutely. I mean, first and foremost, to even have this, opportunity is such an honor, not only with a great league and a great leader in Kim Ng, and then my GM, and our GM, Lisa Fernandez. I mean, it's, I am definitely pinching myself, and and just like how this has all come about. And when I look at our roster, when I got this opportunity and I looked at the roster, I'm like, I've been on the field either, on the same team or against more than 90% of this roster. And so to be able to be a part of it and to have a little piece of it is so amazing. But I have to really go to the leadership of the league and everybody that just the driving force of it. I mean, I can't take much credit. They're just going to allow me to play a small role in it, and I just couldn't be more excited for that. And what you talk about, how fast this league is moving and how quickly they're doing it in such a great manner is, I mean, it's incredible to watch it. And so to be able to help it along and be a part of it is, again, I'm truly honored. And I think, to be able to say I do something that I love, I truly love every day, and now this, wow, blessed are the words that I have.
The obvious comparisons when you look at what this league is trying to do, you go to what the WNBA is doing right now and how prominent they are on major sports networks and how those athletes have established real followings inside and outside of basketball. The soccer, NWSL, is thriving, and obviously our national team in women's soccer has always been incredibly popular. Hockey and softball now coming along and trying to maybe capture some of this momentum. How do you do it? How do you make sure that, the growth is there the same way that, it took the WNBA like 30 years to get to where they're at right now. So maybe the early stages for Athletes Unlimited, but how do you follow that path?
Yeah, again, I'm going to say I can't say that I'm in the room making those decisions, but I think it's just really listening to those leaders that understand how to push this thing faster, and just as much as those other sports and leagues have done, but we're going to do it on a more accelerated pace. And what better person to drive us than who's in charge of us? And I think that whole group of advisors is just doing such a great job of paying attention to the details, what's important. And I think the other thing too is just how incredibly amazing they take care of these athletes, because that's so important, right? And people love to watch them. They are great at what they do. It's exciting, and they're getting to reap the benefits of the products they put out on the field. So I just, again, I think the whole infrastructure around it. Again, I'm just going to work on the curveballs and the changeups and all of those pieces, and just helping along some of these athletes. But the infrastructure around it is the people that are building this just truly love not only the game, but the people in it and the idea and the process. And to see how fast it's building, the word I have is incredible. It takes my breath away to see it, because I did play in a league many years ago where I felt like I was paying to play. And I think a lot of athletes can say that. So it's a long time coming, but they're putting it to work really quickly. And I appreciate you acknowledging that too, because it is hard work.
Coach Bear, not the one you're used to. Cindy Ball-Malone, Utah Talon's head coach, who was also affectionately referred to as Coach Bear, is our guest here on the Sean O'Connell Show. So you already kind of alluded to this. You look at the roster, you look at what's available to you with this Utah Talon squad, and you're going to have to, kind of cobble it together quickly, because it's a very condensed training schedule and then a very condensed actual competition schedule. What are the, benefits and challenges of that sprint?
Yeah, I think, getting right into the games is so important, because we have a squad full of just competitors and winners. And I know every coach can say that, but I've single-handedly seen it on the field I've seen it with my own eyes of, the women on this roster, they want to be out there, they want to compete, they want to keep driving this game as well. And they have been training hard, though we may not be in the same spot. Like, there's been a lot of communication, a lot of building up where they want to be and just having their process of where they're going. And again, the best person to be in charge of all of that is our GM, Lisa Fernandez. So if you look at her track record, and Utah gets to know it really well, because she's amazing. She is the founder of our sport, and she thinks of every detail and just loves this game so much and wants to build it up along with the people in it. So I think that's the exciting part, and the challenges of us not being together, that's going to be the fun part, because we actually get to play as a squad together.
You're in a very unique position as far as pro sports go, because you're also a college coach. So the pipeline of talent that comes into Athletes Unlimited softball is, for the most part, correct me if I'm wrong, is going to come from, college softball, and is going to come from the domestic college softball pool that we've got. And you're at UCF, and when we're talking about that pipeline, and you get to see kind of both ends of, this is what the professional product is supposed to be and looks like, and this is what the next wave might look like. How does one feed the other in your mind? How does what's happening right now in college softball prepare these athletes to take this league to the next level?
Yeah, I mean, I think it's a really unique situation because you don't see that happening, across the board in all sports. And, people, when we announced here that I was going to be a part of the Talons, I had so many people reach out like, we're going to miss you so much. I'm like, I'm not going anywhere. They did this right. They made it to where we can incorporate both of them and it doesn't affect our seasons. And if you have a well-established staff at the university that you're at, it allows you to go and help build the game. But I'm telling you, in just the conversations with the athletes, with the staff, with the coaches, it has built up our brand here in Orlando at UCF. And so, I mean, that's a big part of it is, you're getting to see the athletes that you might be coaching or facing and, just the conversations. Like I have athletes on our team, they're like, they aspire to go out and be a professional athlete. And so now I get to have those conversations of, well, this is what it looks like every day over the summer. And so I think it's, I think it helps both. I think it's going to help me build as a person and as a coach as well. And this sport brought so much into my life and has brought me to a point that I never imagined having a career in this sport and doing as well as we're doing when you first, pick up the ball. And so now to be able to be in this moment and be able to give back and really set the path for the people that are going to come after us is I feel really proud to be a part of that.
You'll have to forgive the novice question here because, like, I enjoy watching college softball. I have not watched a lot of pro softball. Are the games different in any measurable way?
I mean, they're probably just going to play a little bit quicker, I guess to say. But, I mean, you're going to see, like, elite dominant pitching. And that's just, there's the best of the best pitchers are going to be in this league. So I would say that across the board, very consistent. And then it's going to be similar, not always too, but, like, this is my first year in it. And so I may come back and answer that question, next year and say, wow, I really blew that question. I had so many other things I could have said, but I think really the big thing is continuing to show that, it is a game. It's a part of the competition and winning, but the entertainment of this game is unreal. I mean, what these women can do on the field it's no different. And I think that that's what's really important. And we need to start continuing to get out there is, people ask, well, how do you coach women? Well, we just coach athletes. The women can do just as many things as those men can do. Maybe they don't lift as much and, their speed is a little different, comparable, but I mean, it still is, it's an entertainment that, very hard to replicate. And so that's, I would say it's just at the best level, the most elite level. And you have more maturity when it comes to the mental performance piece. So you're probably seeing less uh-ohs during the game as you would in maybe college. And I think that it goes true to, they're hitting their peak physical performance at the age that they're in when they are in the league. And so it's exciting to be able to have the opportunities for these athletes at the time where they're at playing their best softball.
Did you have Utah connections before taking this job?
I mean, I have lots of friends. The head coach there at Utah is somebody I've always been connected with and whatnot. But, I mean, no, not other than that. The coaches at Utah, and I did coach at Boise State for a short time. So I know that area. But it just kind of all wound up, connecting together.
When you were at the University of, you were at Pacific, right?
As an athlete and a coach for a little bit, yeah.
Right. Did you overlap with Lynn Roberts? Do you know Lynn Roberts at all?
The name, yes.
Okay.
But didn't over, but I do know the name.
It's you look at your background, it's like, oh, I wonder if because she was a great coach here before moving on into the WNBA. And I don't know, athlete circles are sometimes small, but depending on how big an athletic department is, like there's not always a ton of crossover. Anyway, just wondered.
Yeah, I think that I miss Lynn by a couple of years, if I'm not mistaken, with the timing of things.
Okay,
so I just know by being a proud alum and reading about the different sports and everything.
The Dumke Family Stadium is a really cool facility. One of the many upgrades that the University of Utah athletic program has made on campus, and they got that thing done a long time before the baseball team got theirs done. But similar views, similar kind of backdrop, a wonderful place to come out and watch a game. So I hope that you guys get the attendance you deserve. We're going to do our best to help in that effort because I'm a dad of 3 daughters, and I should be bringing them out to games, and I want to make sure that women's sports are really thriving by the time they get old enough to be participating in themselves. So we look forward to seeing you June 9th and then beyond. Good luck with everything until then.
Thank you. I appreciate it.
That is Coach Bear. Cindy Ball Malone is the head coach of the Utah Talons, the new entertainment options, especially in the state of Utah. There's a lot of things you can do with your summer. This is a pretty contracted season that the Utah Talons play. You got like 8 weeks of total softball here. So if you can, get out to the Dumke with the kids, have a good time. Obviously, they make it affordable. We talked about this with when the team got announced last year, James. The uniforms are awesome. The logo is really cool. It's like the eye. The Owen Talons is the eye of a bird of prey, okay? And there's a little stylized looking talon on top of it. It's neat. I'm into that when we're talking about sports branding as well. So big thanks to the Utah Talons for providing us a little reference today. And hopefully all of you at least had a listen and maybe got a spark of curiosity about women's professional softball right here in our own state. Again, opening day, June 9th against the Chicago Bandits up at the U. The Daily Dump is coming next. Lots of stuff to get to. Sean O'Connell Show on Utah's #1 sports talk, ESPN 700 and 92.1 FM. Truck with the duck to handle plumbing issues, drain cleaning issues. If that air conditioner, you just started to fire it up as the weather warms up and it's shaking, it's rattling, it's coughing, it's making some funny noises or a weird smell, or maybe it's just not even working. Call Valley Plumbing, Heating, and Air. Look for the truck with the duck. valleyplumbing.com. You can make an appointment online. You don't even have to pick up a phone to call. All right. Lots of things that we can throw in here. This one, we've given you plenty of updates on the Brendan Sorsby situation. Remember, the University of Cincinnati quarterback has been paid, depending on which reports you believe, between $5 and $6 million to transfer to Texas Tech. And as of today, he is ineligible to compete this upcoming season because of the revelation that he was involved for many years in gambling, sports gambling, specifically sports gambling on teams that he was playing for. Now, he wasn't playing in the games that he was betting on. He never bet on his team to lose when he was at the University of Indiana. I think they call it Indiana University, actually, right? It's IU, not U of I. Indiana University. He was betting on everything. They pulled up the transcript. They pulled like this guy was betting on the Nathan's hot dog eating contest for the 4th of July. He had a gambling problem. He checked into an inpatient gambling addiction facility. The defense that his legal team is going to try to overturn this rejection of his eligibility, the legal team is going to focus on the fact that this is a mental health issue, that this is a mental health problem for Brendan Sorsby. But as of right now, he has been denied eligibility reinstatement. Texas Tech and the Sorsby legal team are going to appeal that decision and try to get him eligible to play before the season begins. And we are rapidly approaching kind of year zero doomsday on this for Brendan Sorsby. Right now, college football players are finishing school. Pretty much every university is done, right? So these guys are heading back home. They are doing the quote-unquote voluntary summer workouts. Then they will convene back on campus, depending on the program, depending on the time, for summer conditioning and, of course, for fall camp. That's in effectively 6 weeks, right? We get into football in earnest in August. There's not a ton of time, and we know how the legal process can drag out, which is why there's a lot of questions about whether or not he will be able to get a temporary restraining order against the NCAA and be allowed to play while he fights this out. It is worth noting that the first judge that was assigned to the Brendan Sorsby case happened to be a Texas Tech alum who was like a season ticket holder and like a booster. Pictures on social media of them with the pistols up, go Tech, whatever they do. He recused himself. So at least the legal process is playing out with some integrity there. I just don't see a scenario in which college football can allow Brendan Sorsby to play. And I don't think we don't have any information to make us believe that he was trying to manipulate outcomes on games or that he was undermining the spirit of competition. Like, maybe he does have a real gambling addiction. The problem is that you cannot create this precedent. Right now, the precedent is that anyone who is associated with gambling on sports and specifically on college sports, you're ineligible. It's done. It's over with. I'm sorry, you can't play. If you reverse that now, if there's somehow some landmark legal ruling where Brendan Sorsby is allowed to play, yikes. We believe that given the facts in the context of Brendan's case, the NCAA's ruling should be reversed or modified. This is from the president of Texas Tech University. This is not his coach. This is not even the athletic director. This is a university president saying, we believe that given the facts and context of Brendan's case, the NCAA's ruling should be reversed or modified. As a generation of college athletes face the legalization and rapid proliferation of sports betting in our country, gambling addiction is rising to a point of epidemic proportions among college-age men in particular. The NCAA's stated mission includes fostering student-athlete lifelong well-being. They have claimed their goal is to promote a culture of care for student-athletes' mental health. Gambling addiction is a clinically recognized behavioral disorder. Texas Tech is doubling, tripling, quadrupling down on supporting Brendan Sorsby because they believe this was an addiction, not his choice, not something that was controllable, nothing nefarious. This is a wild decision. And by the way, a university president going on record with quotes about a scandal involving a high-profile athlete is actually not all that common. Yeah, you're going to hear from the coach. Yeah, you're going to hear from the athletic director. How often do you hear from the university president on these things? I mean, think of all of the sports scandals in college athletics that you can go back through. And how many times was there a quote of any import or meaning from a university president? There's a layer of insulation between athletics and the university president by design, for a reason. The athletic department and the university are actually two different verticals. They share licensing agreements, basically. For a university president to be the one who's just like, yeah, man, we're against the NCAA decision on this, that is a level of buy-in and commitment to athletics on your campus that a lot of schools do not enjoy, where the university president is just going to be like, hey, good luck, athletic director. You're going to handle this one. I am not getting my beautiful suit muddy with these gambling waters. Not at Texas Tech. Their university president is just like, you're wrong. This is a mental health disorder. Let him play.
We talked about this with how things are different in the SEC. Texas Tech is not part of the SEC, right? Big 12.
They act like it.
They're in Texas, right? Texas is the way Texans care about high school and college football might as well be like they're part of the SEC. That's probably why you get something like this where the university president is like, you know what, my hands don't need to be clean from this. This is important enough for me to voice my opinion on this. You're not going to get the governor of Texas, stumping for Texas Tech. That's the difference here. But I mean, things are different. Things are different in that part of the country with college football for sure.
I actually agree wholeheartedly with the assertion by Texas Tech, by Sorsby, that it's deeply hypocritical for the NCAA to be like, gambling is criminalized for our student athletes. Also, this broadcast, this game, this whatever is brought to you by DraftKings. I totally agree with that. If you are drinking from the fountain of gambling money and telling the student athlete, like, but you can't participate in this, that is a hypocritical stance. But again, we allow people to be hypocritical on a business front in the United States, legally and otherwise, all the time. I mean, all the time.
I mean, think of another example. Think of the alcohol and beer commercials, but yet many college athletes are under the age of 21. So if it's
the best example you could come up with.
So if and we all know, wink wink, going to enforce every underage drinking on college campuses. They don't, right? Unless there's something crazy serious happening and we have to enforce this. But if one of these athletes who's under a high profile or not, under the age of 21, is caught underage drinking and they're arrested for it, you can't be like, well, that's super hypocritical because you have commercials advertising beer. Like
I worked in bars and clubs for all through my college days and after. I don't drink. I never have drank myself. But there was a hypocritical process even on that micro level where it's like, hey, do not overserve people. It's actually illegal for a bar to overserve somebody, right? But then you're just supposed to like use your discretion as by the way, for me, a 21-year-old non-drinker, be like, well, this is his 8th shot. Is that overserving him? He's had 10 beers. Is that too much?
He keeps paying. Should I keep serving him?
What is the actual goal of the business? You want to sell as much as you can. You want to make as much money as you can, right? So, look, there's hypocrisy in a lot of rules and laws in the United States of America. Does that mean I support hypocrisy? Does that mean that I'm like okay with it being that way? No, I'm not. However, Brendan Sorsby and his legal team deciding that he is going to be like the poster boy for fighting against the hypocrisy of athletic organizations and institutions taking money from gambling but not wanting gambling to be a thing that actually affects them. It's a hell of a take to be like, yeah, this kid, he was abused by this system, and because of that, you should allow him to still play quarterback. He knew the rule. There's no shot that Brendan Sorsby can make a case that he did not realize he was doing something he wasn't supposed to be doing. You knew the rule. Oh my gosh. You know what? I see all these internet ads about taking testosterone replacement and, borderline steroids, and I took them as an athlete because of the ads. Well, it's hypocritical that these ads should be on my Instagram, but that I'm not allowed to take them. Yeah, man, you operate under a different set of rules when you're a professional athlete. He's a professional athlete. The rules for you on a college campus as a now compensated athlete are different than they are for the student body. They always have been, and guess what? They always will be. If you are a sports personality, if you are an athlete, if you are a coach, your behavior, your conduct is asked and required to be held to a higher standard. Or if you don't want to call it a higher standard, a different standard. You are not allowed to do some things that other students are. And guess what? On the flip side of that coin is you get things that no other student could possibly dream of in their life. And that was true before NIL came into play. Everyone knows the trade-off. And then when you get caught doing something you're not supposed to do, everyone plays dumb. Well, I didn't know I wasn't supposed to be driving 120 miles an hour in the suburbs of Georgia. I'm a Georgia Bulldog. I didn't know I was supposed to be doing this. Just like, yeah, you did. You made a bad choice. And in this case, many, many, many bad choices. I don't think they can let him play. I've said it many times. I probably spent too much time on it. But the latest in the Daily Dump is that the NCAA has officially denied the Texas Tech quarterback Brendan Sorsby request to be reinstated as eligible for the 2026 season, and even the school president, the athletic director, everyone is backing him. Texas Tech versus the NCAA.
Remember the Jim Harbaugh, the scandal, this Connor Stallion scandal that he left the school with, right? Michigan, and they win the national championship that year. The T-shirts, Michigan against the world. They're printing Texas Tech Red Raiders against the world T-shirts in Lubbock today, no doubt. Or was it Michigan against everybody? Whatever it was.
Whatever it is. Also in the Daily Dump today, this is something that I'm fascinated by the opinion that people have on this. The expanded college football playoff proposals that we have talked about, that we have heard the Big Ten wanting to go to 24, the ESPN partners saying, no, let's stay at 12, or maybe we can at least keep it a little bit smaller. The SEC said, no, we want 16. And then at the spring meetings, a bunch of the individual programs came out and said, we didn't want 16. Greg Sankey went up and said the SEC's stance is 16. That's not my stance at Vanderbilt. That's not my stance at Ole Miss. That's not they're not even in agreement there. And as we look closer and closer at these numbers and what it would look like, did you see what Sports Illustrated did and went through and said, all right, what if when we brought a college football playoff into play, got rid of the BCS system, what if it had always been a 24-team college football playoff? Did you see the numbers on who would have made the college football playoff?
Yeah, Utah would have had a bunch of college football playoff appearances.
Utah would have made the college football playoff 8 times. It would have been since 2014, 2015. 80 different teams would have made the field at some point in time. Now, I have been against 24 teams. I've been against all of the I've been buying into some of the scare tactics about why 24 teams devalues a regular season and rivalry games at the end of the season could fall on the sword here. I'm fully buying into that fear-mongering because we've seen it happen. We've seen guys decide to opt out of bowl games. We've seen guys opt out of even really important games for their team because they're pursuing professional opportunities. Well, in this case, coaches might be like, you know what? Holy War finally got put at the end of the season, but we're making the college football playoff. I'm resting you guys. And it takes a little bit of love out of that game. My proposal is you move all rivalry games, all protected rivalry games in college football. And yes, we should go through and we should have some committee. I will be the head of it. I don't care. That decides which rivalry games are culturally, historically relevant to the game of college football. Holy War, Territorial Cup, Civil War game between Oregon and Oregon State. Give me USC, Michigan. USC, Notre Dame. Give me Michigan, Ohio State. Give me all these games, okay? All these games that matter. The backyard brawl, the biggest cocktail party, whichever ones you decide are most important. And you put them all in week 1. So they are protected. They are insulated from resting players on purpose. You put them all in week 1. That's the only way to guarantee maximum participation with rivalry games, especially if you're expanding a college football playoff. But when I see that 80 teams would have been playoff teams at some point, I'm reminded of the March Madness effect. We were talking about this at the beginning of the show. College basketball and fans' interest in March Madness across the country, there's a ubiquitous nature. It's always there because you've got a bracket to fill out. And at some point, even if you're like a Weber State grad, even if you're a George Washington grad, your team is in the tournament. 80 teams in college football would have been in the college football playoff if it were 24 teams. Now, that takes a little luster off of being a college football playoff team, but I'm fully on board with that. I don't think making the college football playoff is an accomplishment. I don't think it's a cool thing. I don't think you hang a banner for that. Hey, we're a playoff team. So what? You made it into the playoffs? Conference champion, national champion. Those are the things. We made it to the second round of the playoff. I don't even know why we like Final Four. We're a Final Four team. All right. Were you the 4th best team in the country? That's good, but it's not great.
It's obviously the event that the Final Four has become, and I think it's because it's 4 brackets. You want a regional, but yeah, it is funny because in pro sports we only celebrate the champion. We kind of celebrate the runner up because they won a conference or something, but we barely even celebrate that. We celebrate the one champion.
Ask how many pro athletes whether or not they wear their NFC championship ring.
Never, right?
Like, hey, you know what? We were Eastern Conference finalists. We do that in sports media to give context to how good a team was last year. In the fan base, you shouldn't be celebrating that too much. By all means, a little pat on the back, fine. But I'm digressing here. The number of appearances that teams would have made if we had been a 24-team college football playoff. We're going to take a break here, and I'm going to give you some of the numbers on that on the other side because they're really interesting, and it does bring in a lot of quite frankly, compelling thoughts for me about whether or not you increase the buy-in from all college football fan bases if you do have this large of a playoff. I'll tell you why it won't exactly work that way, but we'll get there, okay? Beautiful day again in Salt Lake City. Temperature mild, friendly. Soon enough, probably 6 weeks from now, you're going to be like, what furnace am I living in? You better have an energy-efficient home when that happens. And if you want your home to be energy efficient, chances are you might need newer, better windows. Advanced Window Products can provide that for you while also giving you great prices, providing you financing options, and guaranteeing their work from the start of the process all the way through the life of your home. Which means 10 years from now, if there is an unanticipated problem with your windows, they are covered under warranty by a local company, the local manufacturer, the custom-made, beautiful vinyl windows that you spent a decent amount of money on and you got a nice payment plan on and helped you with the energy savings at your house. Those are an investment that you can believe in even after you've moved on, even after you've moved out of the house. You can tell the person you're selling the house, hey, here's your transferable warranty. Those windows are covered. Companies don't do this anymore. They don't take care of their customers or believe in their products like they used to. We've all experienced that with our cars, with our refrigerators, with our vacuum cleaners, with whatever. Advanced Window Products is one of the last companies in America that stands by their work to this degree. Lifetime warranty. As long as the house is standing, the windows are covered. It's pretty incredible. 801-850-9100, $2,500 off, 10 windows or more. They will prorate that discount even if you go 10 windows or less. Give them a phone call. Tell Nate Orchard and Jake Weber you heard about it on the Sean O'Connell Show. They will take extra special care of you. Adrian Denny's still going to join us. That's the Daily Dump brought to you by Valley Plumbing. More thoughts on what would have been in an expanded college football playoff. It had been 24 teams in the last decade. It's the Sean O'Connell Show on ESPN 700 and 92.1 FM. 4, 12, 16, 24. All proposed numbers of a college football playoff structure. We've seen 4. We've seen 12. 16, not universally agreed upon. 24, far from universally agreed upon. But several publications, including Sports Illustrated, have looked at what might have been in college football if 24-team college football playoffs had been a thing in the last decade plus. If you go back to the 2014-2015 season and you make the change there and you say, all right, it's 24 teams, 80 different college football teams would have made the field at some point. And that was one of the selling points for the COO, the chief operating officer of the Big Ten. That's one of the reasons why the Big Ten likes it and thinks everyone else should like it. Like, hey, your team could be one of the 80. If we expand to 24 teams, that means everybody gets involved. And I went down to the bottom of the list to look at, all right, but like who really would be involved? Tell me if these teams you think of, your mind's eye brings up college football glory and a pursuit of a national championship in a college football playoff when I tell you the names of these teams. Western Michigan Broncos, one-time appearers. Wake Forest Demon Deacons. The Vanderbilt Commodores, who might actually be a power player in college football now. The UNLV Rebels would have made it. Tulsa, the Golden Hurricane, would have been in a college football playoff at some point. The Trojans, not of USC, of Troy University.
Shout out to OCU Manura.
How about this? Even in an expanded 24-team college football playoff, Texas Tech would have made it one time. And they did make it one time in an expanded 12-team.
So this last year would have been the only time?
Yeah.
Yeah. I guess they've had some lean years over the last decade, haven't they?
Even when they were good, they weren't that good.
They were like 4 losses good.
Yes.
Yeah.
San Diego State would have made it. Minnesota would have made it. Liberty, James Madison, Illinois, Fresno State, Coastal Carolina, Army would have been a playoff team. Arkansas and App State all would have been one-time playoff teams.
Coastal Carolina, we all know which year that would have been.
We know which year that would have been. BYU would have made it 4 times into the college football playoff. Same with Arizona. Arizona 3 times. TCU would have been in it 4 times. Boise State would have been in 3 times. Baylor 4 times. Utah would have been in the college football playoff 8 times. And for me, it's always the question of, do I like something just because it's good for me individually? Right? Do I like a system that rewards mediocrity from middle-aged white men instead of everyone else just because that's what I've got? I'm middle-aged, mediocre, and white. Does that mean I want a system in the country, a system legally, a system economically, that's all you need? I mean, obviously, no. On paper, you look at that and you're just like, that shouldn't be a thing. That shouldn't be a qualifier as to why I buy into something or not, right? Hey, I really like every system. I get to go to the front of every line because I have blue eyes. Do I think that's a good system? No, it's not a good system. Do I like a college football playoff expanded to 24 teams just because Utah would have been an 8-time appearer in this thing? Still no for me.
That whole list that you just read off, by the way, OC, the highest profile teams, and Utah is higher than that list we threw out. We included them because of the local tie-in here, home of the Utes too. But if you take Utah out, just those teams that made it 4 times or less, BYU, Baylor, and TCU, Arizona, those are the highest profile teams. None of those teams are outside of the Big 12 footprint, old Pac-12 footprint. None of those teams are anyone that's going, oh yeah, we want those universities in there. Maybe BYU or Baylor I guess Arizona would be the one that most likely people in
I left a bunch
Louisiana would have been.
I left a bunch out because here's what's interesting. How many Power 4 teams are there?
There's 60-something, 65.
80 teams have made this. Every Power 4 team effectively makes the college football playoff in the last 12 seasons if it's a 24-team playoff. That's the selling point that is going to get conferences on board and is going to get universities on board, because they're going to look at this list. I mean, it's a genius exercise by the Big Ten, who's the number one proponent, to say, look who all has made it. Because you can be resistant to it. You can just be, we don't need 24. 24 is too many. The broadcast partner doesn't want 24. And if you're like at the university, if you're at Houston, right, you're not really a player. If you're at UCF, if you're at one of these places, you're just like, guys, the Big 12 doesn't need this, doesn't want this. There's no reason for me to support this. Until the Big 10 comes to you and goes, guess how many times you would have made it, Houston? You'd have been a 2-time playoff team.
Yeah. And
Kansas State, you would have been in, man.
This is the whole reason why, from a institution perspective, not just from a financial perspective, but why institutions, why coaches really like expansion, is because I would have a resume bullet point that says I made the tournament, right?
Yes.
We're expanding to 76 teams. For example, again, a reason why us locally should probably be on board with it in basketball is because it makes it easier for Alex Jensen and the Runnin' Utes to make the tournament. Lot harder to do it when there's 8 less teams invited to the dance, right?
Look,
it's the same thing with college football.
Colorado would have made it twice.
Yeah.
Okay? You're telling me that ESPN doesn't want Colorado in a college football playoff with Coach Prime at the helm?
Especially 2 years ago, I'm assuming one of those years they would have made it when they had Travis Hunter and Shedeur Sanders on campus.
Houston, Cincinnati, Arizona, Iowa State, Arizona State, Colorado, Kansas State. These are the teams just in the Big 12 conference that would have made it UCF would have made 2 appearances. This is the danger, if you want to call it that, of why people are going to eventually get on board with this. How bad has Oklahoma State been as of late? Oklahoma State, just one of the most epic collapses of a program we have seen in college football. Oklahoma State looks at this list and says, wow, we would have been in that field 6 times.
6 times. And Utah being in 8 times shouldn't be that surprising, because that was the end of the Pac-12 era, and that was when Witt and company really had things rolling for Utah in the Pac-12. But that seems like a huge number.
Here's the teams it's most tantalizing for, right? Because the top number of appearances when they broke this thing down, Alabama would have been in 12 times. Ohio State would have been in 12 times. Clemson 11 times. Georgia 10 times. Notre Dame 10 times, right? For them, there's no change needed. They still have easy access to a college football playoff. You can make it a 12-team playoff. Those teams are going to be in. You can make it a 16-team playoff. Those teams are going to be in. You go to an 8-team playoff. Those teams are going to be in more often than they're not. It's most tantalizing for Oregon, Utah, Penn State, USC, Iowa. Those are the 8-time appearing, 7-time appearing type teams. Because you're right there. You're close as a program to that threshold, even for the 12-team playoff, but you're guaranteed if it's a 24-team, you're in. I don't want the 24-team playoff, but this breakdown, this numbers table, is the reason why we're probably going to get it at some point.
And going back to the comparison of BYU and Utah in this history, if it were the college football playoff history, if it were always 24 teams, Utah double the amount of times. But you got to think, if BYU was in the Big 12 the entire time, it'd probably be close to what Utah was. A lot of that was independence and not having the same resources as Utah had in the Pac-12.
I think that BYU benefited a lot more from NIL than they did from the Big 12.
Yeah.
I think that was the big – I mean, they happened concurrently basically, but I think that for BYU, NIL is a lot bigger deal than Big 12 inclusion, because what wins you football games? It's not being in the Big 12 conference. It's the roster that you've got now that you are a big-time financial player.
But half of that time was pre-NIL, and those are the years that BYU was in independence. That certainly hurt them, I feel like.
No, for sure. But like even like if you took BYU and you put BYU in the Big 12 in 2014 or whatever, I think a bigger difference maker, like BYU would have had a harder time competing. Like Utah went through a tough growth period, transition period into the Pac-12 conference. That would have happened to BYU.
Yeah.
And BYU didn't always have, like, Utah had the right coach in place when it went through that transition, and it was still really hard. BYU didn't. Right? So,
yeah,
I guess depending on the year, because Kalani is the right guy.
But if we to your point, if we extrapolate this forward, you're absolutely right. Conference affiliation or lack thereof, not as big a deal as NIL going forward, and BYU certainly has taken big advantage of that.
All right, we got to take a break here. One of the big surprises in recent pro sports was completed, I should say, last night. The Colorado Avalanche eliminated from the Stanley Cup playoffs in the Western Conference Finals in a 4-game sweep, a rough end to one of the more impressive seasons we have seen recently in the NHL. We'll talk with Adrian Denny about that and why it happened. It's the Sean O'Connell Show. Between the Pipes next on ESPN 700 and 92.1 FM. 2007 Patriots, the 2016 Warriors, the 07 Mavs, the 2024 Kansas City Chiefs, the 2026 Colorado Avalanche. Best team in the league in the regular season, and now for the 13th straight year, that team in the Stanley Cup playoffs fails to advance to the final. Colorado eliminated in a 4-game sweep at the hands of the Vegas Golden Knights last night in Las Vegas. Wild. 2-1, took an empty netter, really cool deflection goal by Landeskog to get to within 2-1, under 2 minutes left. But Vegas able to close it out, and they are headed to the Stanley Cup final against either Montreal or Carolina, who will play their Game 6 tonight, which you can listen to right here on ESPN 700 and 92.1 FM. We're talking hockey with our Mammoth and NHL insider, Adrian Denny, as we go between the pipes. Hey, Adrian, how are you?
Hey, Sean, thanks for having me back. After last week at this time, we were getting ready for the Western Conference Finals with the Avs and Vegas Golden Knights. Hadn't even started the series, and
now it's over.
It's done, and I didn't have any of that. I don't think anybody else did. I was looking at reporter predictions from The Athletic. 28 of 29 reporters had Colorado winning the series. ESPN, about the same, 21 of 24. Had Colorado winning the series. Steve Levy and PK Subban were two that had Vegas, by the way. So I guess don't beat myself up too bad. But holy cow, if folks listened last week, they're listening now. They're like, they brought back the guy that doesn't know anything about hockey.
Well,
here he is.
If that's how it is, then that means a lot of people don't know anything about hockey. But no, I mean, look, there's a tendency to look at the regular season that Colorado had. And I called them probably for weeks on this show the presumed or the eventual Stanley Cup champions. I've been talking about the Winter Classic coming next year, and every time saying, hey, Colorado might be the defending champs when you play them next New Year's Eve, I should say. And it just didn't play out that way, and they went out with such a whimper in this series, getting swept 4-0. It makes you question like what went wrong, not in a good on Vegas type of way, but like that epic of a collapse for Colorado really is hard to figure out beyond the injuries.
Hockey just always seems to fool you, right? Like you just said it coming into the segment. The team with the best record in the NHL in the regular season hasn't won the Stanley Cup since Detroit in 2008. So it's not common. Playoffs are, a different story, but I don't know. When Colorado was 31-2-7, I didn't see anybody beating them. They were manhandling everybody, and then they fall behind 3-0 after they had that 3-0 lead on Sunday night, and it just seemed like they were down. They were deflated. They were done playing Vegas. They knew it was over. We saw it from Anaheim in Game 6. We saw it from Utah in Game 6 against Vegas. Like, okay, we're done. We're out of here. We are done. We are tired of dealing with this, and we're moving on. And for Colorado, it kind of sunk in a little earlier than it did with Utah and Anaheim. And after that game, they're down 3-0, and when a team goes down 3-0, you see all the numbers and the chances in the NHL. 4 times in history has a team erased a 3-0 deficit to win a series. In the NBA, it's never happened. But you remember 2 years ago, Edmonton falls down 3-0 to Florida in the Stanley Cup final, and their head coach, Chris Knobloch, gets on the podium and says, I'm really looking forward to the next 10 days. And they won 3 in a row. They got to Game 7. There was none of that from Colorado. They just seemed over it. They seemed resigned to the fact that it was over. Third period last night, like the body language, and you hear people that were down reporting in the bench areas, nationally saying, gosh, there was a difference between the Vegas bench, the Colorado bench. Vegas bench was going, Colorado bench was quiet. And there's factors. Again, you watch Nathan McKinnon and Cale Makar, you can tell the 2 best players are not even close to being there. But to get swept?
Well, in between mid-second period and mid-third period last night, there was a 25-minute stretch of hockey where the Colorado Avalanche had 2 shots. They were not able to possess the puck in their own offensive zone. They weren't able to get it through the neutral zone at all. Vegas, it's like Vegas just decided we're not letting them get started at all in this game. Now, of course, every team wants to make a decision like that, but the execution of it was pretty incredible for Vegas as well. And Colorado looked like a completely different team than the one that we saw the Utah Mammoth play several times this year. They didn't look like the same team that you saw on television, that you saw in the last series. And you got to assume there's a health element to it, obviously. But it's not only that. Because one thing that you have taught me, that we have learned watching these NHL playoffs and watching hockey for these last couple of years a lot more closely, is that you cannot be a team that only depends on your top line. You cannot be a team that only depends on your stars in the NHL, because it's not like NBA basketball. It's way different than NFL football. Your stars are obviously massively important, and they're going to make big plays for you, but your stars don't play really a significantly larger margin of minutes than the rank and file on your team, than the depth on your team. Your third line has to be able to do something. Your second line has to be able to do something for you. And Colorado got none of that from those guys. Vegas did last night. They got a goal. The 2-0 goal was from the fourth line. Vegas got that. Colorado didn't.
Exact opposite of the Colorado and Minnesota series when we were sitting here talking about, Colorado was just stacked. They were getting stuff from their third liners, their fourth liners, their fifth and sixth D, and there was just nothing. The Avs scored the most goals in the NHL during the regular season. They were over 4 a game for most of the year. They scored 7 goals in 4 games. Martin Necas and Nathan MacKinnon, 2 guys that had over 100 points during the regular season, both held to 2 assists in 4 games. And when we were talking about this series, okay, if Vegas is going to have a chance, what do they do? How do they do it? And for me, it was shut down the top players of Colorado, McKinnon, Necas, and Gabe Landeskog, like they did against Anaheim, like they did in spurts against Utah. There were games where Keller, Schmaltz, and Krause were held off the board, and then they moved on to Cooley, Gunther, and Yamamoto. But Vegas in this playoffs did a great job of mowing through the West by shutting down the top forwards from the other team. And, you know, if they don't play Utah in that first round, that they barely got through, right? Mammoth had the lead in 4 of the first 5 games in the third period, but a fast team in the Mammoth. Then they go to a fast team in Anaheim and a fast team in Colorado. And you could tell throughout the course of the playoffs, we talked about, they kind of got off to some slower starts against Utah and Anaheim. And then against Colorado, it was just from game number 1. They clogged up the neutral zone. They didn't let the speed of Colorado break through, which Cale Makar missing the first 2 games, huge there, because he can do anything that he wants when he's got the puck. So that, and then they block a lot of shots, and holy smokes, OC, Carter Hart all of a sudden has been the MVP of the playoffs so far for a Vegas team that had the 28th best save percentage in the NHL in the regular season. Goaltending was an issue for him, and Carter Hart, we talked about it for the playoffs. He had a run with John Tortorella when they were with Philadelphia, and then coming back this year, eligible to play on December 1st. Boy, has he been good going up against the 2 Avs goalies who combined for the most wins in the NHL. And if there's one thing that Jared Bednar might be looking back at is, and I don't think it changes anything in the series, but you Monday morning quarterback it, he stuck with Scott Wedgwood for the first 3 games, whereas during the regular season it was pretty much every other game. And so kind of changing that, the balance of those 2 goalies. Maybe we saw how good Mackenzie Blackwood was last night.
Yeah, he was good last night.
Could have been 5-6-0 if he goes to him after a game 1 like he probably would have after a regular season loss on a Wednesday when you're playing on a Friday. Is that anything that changes the series? I don't think so, but that's one thing that Colorado kind of strayed away from that was in their control outside of the injuries during this conference final. But holy smokes, Vegas, the recipe they employed against Utah and Anaheim, they did it even better against Colorado. Just didn't give them any space, blocked shots, got saves. And as you said, one shot in how many minutes?
Crazy. I remember when the news came out that that Vegas was moving on with 8 games left in the regular season, and they were going to hire John Tortorella. I was like, all right. Torts is one of those guys that even if you're the most casual of casual hockey fans, you know the name, you've heard the name, you've seen Torts, and I still was like, is this going to be? That seems like a weird, kind of desperate, bad messaging move that late in a season where your team is in the playoffs. It's like, what? That made no sense to me. And yet here they are with John Tortorella, and maybe it's just the relationship he has with Hart that has allowed this to be such a perfect fit. But 8 games before the regular season ends, you make a coaching change, and you're in the Stanley Cup final. Never would have been on my bingo card.
Me either. Like, I'm watching Game 5 against Vegas when the series is 2-2 and it's the first period. I'm like, come on, guys. Like, you can beat this team. Like, that's the one part of the series, the one part all year I was just kind of annoyed, kind of frustrated. I'm like, the Mammoth can take it to this team. And we saw him in March, and there was just something off with him. We talked about it when Utah went down there and shut him out 4-0. And John Tortorella comes in, and there's been reports that there was no intention of keeping him beyond this playoff run. They like their AHL coach, Ryan Craig, who's got a connection with their GM, Kelly McCrimmon. But now you look at it, and they've kind of adapted the personality of their head coach. Like, it's hard to compliment somebody who you don't relate to, who, right? We like people that are like us,
sure,
right? That I can't relate to John Tortorella. But his team has taken on his personality, and it's just kind of, just how do you say it on the radio and stay on the air? But they just don't care. Like he's come in. He hasn't micromanaged him. His message the whole time is, I've got a team here. They're veterans. They've won a Stanley Cup. I'm gonna kind of shepherd them along as need be, but we don't need to make major changes here. Where they made the coaching change. You could tell Bruce Cassidy had kind of grinded on him as has been kind of his reputation. Tortorella has the exact same thing, but 8 regular season games and playoffs, you're still getting that new coach bump, but they've adapted his personality. And John Tortorella was the coach of Columbus, last team in 2019 when they beat the Tampa Bay Lightning in the first round and swept them, best record in the NHL. So he's done it before. One of the knocks on him was managing playoff series because he's so motivational. He's so mindset based, but the X's and O's have not been, kind of the criticism of him in previous years in this series. In fact, Vegas has gotten better. So I didn't see it coming. I mean, I thought, man, Utah should Game 5. I'm like, there's no reason why Utah shouldn't be winning this series, but we've seen him just get better and better, and for the Mammoth now, I think you're looking at it like, we did play a good series, as we said, and here's the proof.
I'm going to be haunted by 52 seconds left to go up 3-1 in that series in Game 4 and couldn't close it out, because that changes the entire complexion of not only that series, but maybe this Stanley Cup playoff if you're able to get it done. And I'm fine, right? It's one of those things that a group has to maybe go through together. You have to have that sting and remember it in next year's Stanley Cup playoffs. And so the next time you come across that scenario, you do close it out. over that final minute of play or whatever. But now that this Vegas team is in the Stanley Cup final, and I think is going to be the favorite in the Stanley Cup final, depending on who comes out of the East, I'm like, man, this Mammoth team was able to play with them, and there were moments where it looked like they were really, truly the better team. So that's going to haunt me for a minute.
And John Tortorella, right after the series, first thing he said was, like, Andre Tourney coached a good series, and he's got a good team over there, and they gave us a run for it. And you know, you're always going to look back at it, and but that's the Stanley Cup playoffs. The team that gets hot is, you know, they make the move and they go into it, and we've seen it over the years with Florida and with Tampa Bay and with Colorado, and I didn't see anybody taking care of Colorado, but Vegas is the hot team, and you got to say that they're the favorite, as they're going to open their 4th straight series on the road, be it against Montreal or Carolina. Is now they're going to get some rest.
That game, Montreal, Carolina, right here on ESPN 700 and 92.1 FM. How do you think it plays out?
Do you know what? I think you can look at both conference final series so far and see the home team loses game 1, right? Carolina got blown out by Montreal. They went up 1-0 in game 1, then they're down 4-1, and then before you knew it, they're run out of the building, and then they got things reset. Now they've won back-to-back games in overtime. Kind of expected that to be what happened in Colorado, Vegas. It just didn't. And sometimes you see a team with some rest or adjusting to a matchup, they lose the first game and then they win 4 straight. I wouldn't be surprised to see Carolina roll off a couple more wins, win the series in 5. Montreal saying, hey, whoa, we're going to take him to 7, like we've gone 7 games in every series thus far. Montreal has just lost 2 games in a row for the first time since March. But shots, scoring chances, high danger chances, about 2-1 in favor of Carolina in the series. Montreal the other night, same thing, went over a half an hour of game time and had 1 shot on goal. And you know, they beat Tampa Bay in a game 7 with 9 shots, and Carolina's always going to control the puck possession. They lead the NHL in shots every year. This year they were second to Colorado, but I kind of feel Carolina, after those 2 overtime wins, kind of pulling away. As we talked about with Utah and Vegas, you lose 2 games in overtime, then you have to win 2 more instead of just the 4 you already had to win, because you were 1 shot away from winning a couple. So I think Carolina pulls away, but Montreal's already gone to 7 in the first 2 series so far.
Sorry about your luck again, Canada. Another year potentially without a Stanley Cup for a Canadian franchise.
Montreal, last team that did it.
What was that, 93?
93, yeah.
Oh.
Beat the Kings.
It's a long time for a nation that is the home of Canada. Now you've lost the gold medal to us. We keep making the Stanley Cup stay on American soil. It's our sport now, Canada. Sorry.
Not only American soil, but Florida.
Florida, Vegas. Yeah.
Right. This is the 9th time in 10 years that there's going to be a Sun Belt city in the Stanley Cup final.
Yikes. Well, we're looking forward to seeing how tonight's game plays out. And, of course, we'll always check in with Adrian Denny, our Utah Mammoth and NHL insider, Between the Pipes, brought to you by Valley Plumbing, Heating, and Cooling, and Aladdin Industries. Thanks for coming in again.
Yeah, and tonight, Carolina and Montreal, which you can hear right here. Nick Olczyk will be on the call.
Our guy Olczyk?
From Hockey Night in Utah.
Heck yeah.
Yeah, so I always love flipping on the radio, driving around and catching the games here. So
love the work he does. Also hate how good he is at it in his 20s. You know what I mean?
Yeah, so good.
You're just like, save some for the rest of us, man. It's supposed to take some time for you to get that good.
Yeah,
anyway,
he's good.
That's Adrian Denny. Big thanks to him for coming in. We have breaking junk mail news. official Utah football scheduling news from the junk mail folder. It's the Sean O'Connell Show on ESPN 700 and 92.1 FM. James, we need like an official junk mail drop. You know what I mean? We have the breaking news sounder. We need a junk mail sounder. Junk mail, for all of you who are listeners of the show, you know what it means. It's not actual junk. It's official Utah football news from Keeler McJunkin, Assistant Athletic Director for Strategic Communications at the University of Utah. It's a fancy title for the football SID. Junk does a great job, and he is okay with being called junk, by the way. We made sure. But junk mail today is the early season kickoff times being announced for the entire Big 12. But here's the Utah slate as we know it so far. September 3rd, Thursday night game against the Vandals of Idaho will be a 7 p.m. Mountain Time ESPNU kickoff. September 12th, Arkansas. Night game, 8:15 p.m. Mountain Time on ESPN. Rice Eccles, Week 2, night game. Yeah. That sounds fun. I like that. And then September 19th, Utah State. That'll be a 1:30 Mountain Time Fox kick. The 26th is Iowa State. No kickoff time for that yet. Kansas, Colorado, Houston, Cincinnati, BYU, Arizona, TCU. Remember, your bye week is the October 3rd. That's Saturday, October 3rd for the University of Utah this year. So that is what's that, week 6. Nice placement for your bye. It's exciting to know.
You know, it's general conference weekend for those. So you don't even have to worry about there being football. Yeah, it's always the first weekend of October.
Oh, is it? I didn't know.
Yeah. So anyone that's got that, any of you that are members of the church that have that cognitive dissonance, you don't have to worry about that.
I'll tell you what, the decision to remove the temple announcements from from conference itself. When you're an infidel like me, when you're a non-member, takes the luster off a conference, man.
Does it really?
Because that was always like my
thing.
family's always watching it, and you would see social media, people would blow up. Just be, oh my gosh,
That's true. It's always
Vanuatu. You'd be like, oh cool, they're building a temple there. It was always just like a fun, curious thing to know where the next one was going, and now they took it out of conference.
Yeah,
because of the outburst, the unruly Morms.
Oh yeah, because the little the silent uproar of like, oh my gosh, really? That's where they're getting a temple?
Every once in a while, you get like a woo, and the person at the podium will be like, whoa, what was that? That was always fun.
The unruly Morms.
For the non-member, that was always a fun curiosity, and it's gone now. Don't have it anymore.
Yeah.
So conference weekend, you can't get me to watch it like you used to.
And that's your Utes bye week to take it full circle.
That's your Utah bye week conference update on the Sean O'Connell Show. No, those are your kickoff times. Idaho is a 7 p.m. ESPNU. Arkansas, 8:15 Mountain Time on ESPN. Utah State, day game, 1:30 September 19th. And that game will be on Fox. That's the Fighting Bronco Mendenhalls coming down to take on your Utes.
Yeah.
Under first-year head coach Morgan Scalley.
Rivalry renewed. Bronco versus the Utes.
Rivalry renewed. Bronco versus Morgan.
Now, let me tell you what stands out to me from this. None of these ESPN Plus games. Even the Idaho game, which last year it was the Cal Poly game, that was ESPN Plus only. Even that one's on ESPNU. So I don't know, because ESPNU is not a big platform at all, but I don't know if that is an indication of Utah's profile, the high profile kind of being restored in the Big 12, or if that's just a nothing burger. But interesting that ESPNU is the lowest platform that Utah will be on in this early part of the schedule here, and the last game of the season versus West Virginia.
The only gripe I have here is when you're that game on ESPNU. I guess it's a Thursday night game, so you might get a good broadcast crew because there's not a lot of competition. The downside is if you're an ESPNU game, you're getting like the J team a lot of times.
Yeah,
and that means we're setting our over under at Polynesian name mispronunciations at like 17.5.
There's no way even on a Thursday night that's Dave Fleming, Brock Osweiler, usual late night ESPN crew, is it?
I don't know.
West Coast crew. Because that's obviously a pretty good broadcast booth.
They do a good job. Yikes. Anyway, here's the rest of the Big 12 slate, because we got the junk mail focusing on Utah, also the official Big 12 conference mail. So the first Big 12 game of the year is actually not Idaho at Utah. It's Bethune-Cookman at UCF. That game kicks off on ESPN Plus at 6 p.m. Eastern.
Oh, so a few hours earlier.
So it's a couple hours earlier. So the
ESPN Plus, though. You know what I'm saying?
The Knights slid in against Bethune-Cookman a little bit earlier to start off the season. Friday game, September 4th, LIU at Kansas. Don't like that. Keep college football on Thursdays and Saturdays. September 4th, there's a full slate of high school football games. All right, Kansas, What are you doing? Oregon State, Houston, Coastal Carolina, West Virginia, Southeast Missouri, Iowa State, Boston College, Cincinnati, Nichols at Kansas State, Abilene Christian at Texas Tech, Utah Tech, the Fighting James Petersons at BYU.
Go Trailblazers.
To start the BYU slate. That's an ESPN Plus game. Wow, Utah Tech's not drawing ESPNU at least, James? What's going on here?
Come on now. No,
what's going on, Trailblazers?
Those group of those FCS and mid-major basketball, they're very well tied into ESPN Plus, so that doesn't surprise me at all.
Northern Arizona at Arizona, and then Morgan State at Arizona State. That's the full week one slate for the Big 12 conference. So the downside here and we already knew this because we knew what the schedule was, but we didn't know the kickoff times and the networks. The downside here is that unless you're a Big 12 football fan, if you're just a college football fan, there's not a Big 12 game you're watching in week 1. Like, the conference is going to be invisible in week 1.
Yeah, we don't have the week 0 Ireland game, Farmageddon game.
Yeah, there's no Farmageddon game. There's no, like, kickoff classic. When we get to – it's 2027, right? When we get to 2027, Utah's playing Miami. Everyone's watching that.
Yeah, because
nationwide.
They want to see who's going to be known as the U.
Yeah, who gets to call themselves the U all year long.
Battle for the U.
The battle for the U. But that's hopefully just a quirk of scheduling that won't repeat itself with any regularity, but that sucks, man. Every game in the Big 12 conference is just it's a non-contest.
For example, Arkansas is not necessarily a top 25 program perennially, right? But it almost would have been better for the Big 12 this year if the Utes opened their season against Arkansas instead of Idaho, because you'd have at least a couple Power 4 teams facing off, and maybe a ranked one in Utah facing an Arkansas team that may or may not be ranked as well. So that's It's too bad about this year's opening week schedule.
Week 2, you have Oregon at Oklahoma State. That's not going to be a good look for the Big 12 conference.
What was that, 65-0 last year, the Oregon-Oklahoma State game? Oh, my gosh.
You got Arizona at BYU in week 2, so a conference game in week 2 for Kalani Sitake and the Cougs.
That's not going to be one of those conference games that doesn't count as a conference game, though, is it? It could be.
It might be, like, because it was scheduled when Arizona was a Pac-12 team.
It's in that time of the year where it might be. We may still have a couple of those out there.
We have to look into that. And then Arkansas at Utah. I mean, again, I'm thinking of this through the lens of if you're a football fan that's not a Big 12 fan, which game are you watching? And Arkansas Utah is the night game. So it's going to have kind of its own spot. People will watch. It's going to be 9:15. 9:15. That's 9:15 Eastern, right? Jeez.
No, 8:15 Mountain Time, so 10:15 Eastern.
Okay, so that's weird. Why would they?
I think Arkansas must be. Maybe that's central. Maybe what you're reading is Central Time.
I'm reading the Central Time because that's where Big 12 headquarters. The Big 12 league office. Okay, that makes sense. We've figured it out, ladies and gentlemen.
So 7:15 Pacific time. If you want to follow at 3:50, is that 3:15 in Hawaii? Is that what that?
Yeah. So wait, in week 2, your Big 12 day starts with a mollywhopping of the Oklahoma State Cowboys at the hands of Dan Lanning's Oregon Ducks
for the second straight year,
and the redemption of the conference will have to come with the night game of Utah against Arkansas.
And then I think Arizona BYU will be a good draw, whether that counts as a conference game or not.
Yeah, I think that's going to be an awesome game. I think Arizona's a really good team. I think they're a well-coached team. They've got some talent. And obviously BYU, like, especially if this Sorsby thing doesn't get figured out, BYU is going to be the conference favorite to win. We're going to go to Big 12 Media Days, and the coaches poll is going to say BYU is the conference champ this year if Texas Tech is still asking questions about who their quarterback is. And even if it's Will Hammond, like, people know that Will Hammond's not healthy till like week 4 at best. Texas Tech is, if without Sorsby, Texas Tech is very much in a Utah Cam Rising situation. Like, oh yeah, he's going to be back. He's going to be back. Everything's going to be fine. He's going to be back. They're holding their breath on Will Hammond. If that's the case, BYU is going to be picked to win the conference.
When Will Hammond definitely, I mean, we saw it here. He shows that he's got some talent there, but he did it. He did that. Played like 3 games last year, or did he play a little bit more than that? Very limited sample size, anyway. So, if that's the guy you're hanging your hopes on, if you're Texas Tech, because of this Brendan Sorsby gambling scandal, and ineligibility there, that's not necessarily the best thing to be hinging all your hopes on, a guy who's not played much high-level college football, but even though he looked really good in the little bit that he did play.
I mean, he was a highly rated recruit. He's a big get.
Yeah.
Hammond is a good player. There's not a lot of question about that, but he's not nearly as experienced as Sorsby.
No.
And again, the health thing, we always assume the best timeline on recovery for these guys, and we learned the hard way that you can't do that. So Texas Tech, we'll see. But Arizona BYU will be a good game week 2. Reminder, by the way, that now is the perfect time for you to be improving all projects on your home. You need new gutters, now's the time to call, right? Maybe you've got an issue with your plumbing. The weather's good. You can dig up the yard. Everything's fine. Valley Plumbing is going to help you out with that. Nothing, though, can add to the value of your home like giving it a little facelift with some brand new replacement vinyl windows from Advanced Window Products. 801-850-9100 for $2,500 off 10 windows or more. It's going to make your home a lot more energy efficient. And you hear me say that all the time. What I mean is it's going to save you money on your gas bill in the winter, on your power bill in the summer. Your house stays closer to the temperature you want it at. You set the thermostat, and in the wintertime, you're losing all the heat through these bad windows that you've got in the home, through the inefficient process of having a single pane window, maybe having aluminum window frames or metal window frames or janky old dry wood window frames. You get these vinyl frames with the double pane glass, the Advanced Window Products guarantee that is going to take you through the life of your home. As long as those windows are in a standing structure, they are guaranteed. They're going to give you a discount. They're going to give you financing options. They're going to rush the process through their factory that is right here in Salt Lake City. There's no middleman markup. There's no middleman runaround. There is no, oh, hey, I know that you want to cash in something on this warranty. You had an unexpected issue arise. That was an installer issue. That's not our company. Our installers, call them and they'll be the ones to pay for it. That's not how they do things. There is no misleading information here. They're going to tell you exactly what your home needs, exactly how much it's going to cost, what your financing is going to look like if you need it. They're going to install it on an accurate timeline. If they tell you it's going to be 5.5 weeks, it'll be 5.5 weeks. If they tell you they're a little bit slammed right now, it'll be 7 weeks, it's going to be 7 weeks. They value your feedback and your input and your word of mouth to the next customer more than they value even me talking about it on the radio. 801-850-9100, Advanced Window Products, or advancedwindows.com. As always, tell them OC sent you. Little crosstalk, some final thoughts next, and we will give away a round of golf with a trivia question. Lakeside is the Festival of Tees course today. Brought to you by the Utah Golf Association and Mountain Home Services. Trivia next. It's the Sean O'Connell Show on ESPN 700 and 92.1 FM. I got a round of golf for you at Lakeside to close out the show, courtesy of the Festival of Tees here on ESPN 700 and 92.1 FM, Utah Golf Association, and Mountain Home Services. We went through this exercise. Well, actually, it was Sports Illustrated that went through the exercise of evaluating if you expanded the college football playoff to 24 teams, how many times would Utah have made that 24-team field since the 2014-2015 expansion? Thought it was an interesting exercise. How many times would Utah have been, according to the Sports Illustrated article that we were referencing, in an expanded college football playoff field featuring 24 teams? If you know the answer, text it to 877-353-0700. We'll give you a free round of golf at Lakeside. Time for a little crosstalk to close out the show. The Drive with Spence Checketts is next. Final segment of the show is brought to you by our friends at Advanced Window Products. AdvancedWindows.com to schedule an appointment and get your new windows. Beautify your home, make it more energy efficient, and impress your neighbors or make them jealous. Spence Checketts, how are you?
I'm well, Sean. I heard you and James breaking down the schedule release, kind of a random busy news cycle in college football over the past 24 hours. So far, only one super late game. Arkansas, right? Like the 7 o'clock Mountain Time. Love the 1:30 Mountain Time for Utah State. Your point about the opening weekend of the Big 12, though, I thought was really good. Like, you look at the schedule as far as we have it right now, and, the SEC, Greg Sankey came out yesterday and said, this next year is going to be their last year with Cupcake Weekend. I'm just always one that believes the best teams in the sport should be playing against each other every weekend. And, I want to be sensitive to G5 teams, lower-level teams, the FCS, FBS dynamic that bankrolls athletic departments. I know how much damage that would do to smaller schools if it went away. But as we leave amateurism behind, and quite frankly, we've been doing that for a while, I just think every weekend the best teams in the sport should be matched up against each other.
My new proposal is that in order to preserve relevant and historic rivalries in college football, regardless of what you do with the college football playoff field, if you're going to expand it, which they are, just like we did with March Madness, move every rivalry game to week 1.
Okay. I don't hate that.
Holy War is played in week 1.
Yeah.
Civil War is played in week 1. Iron Bowl is played in week 1, because then there is absolutely no chance and no excuse why, we rested our quarterback, we rested our starting safety, we rested our linebacker, because we got a playoff run. We got 5 straight weeks of playoff football against ranked teams in a 24-team playoff. You don't know where you're at yet.
Yeah.
Rivalry game in week 1, that's the way to start a season. That's a wild way to start a season. And would coaches hate it? Yes, they would. Would players and fans love it? Yes, they would. So, and it would keep teams from either scheduling out of their rivalry games or making excuses as to why they're not going to play at full strength in those rivalry games. If you lose rivalries in college football, we've already lost some, but if you lose them from the spirit of actual competition, I'm not going to play my best guys because this rivalry game doesn't mean as much as winning in the college football playoff. If you lose that, you have lost college football.
I totally agree. And it's one of the things I've always believed that should be preserved. And the other nice thing about your proposal, and you kind of alluded to it, let's find out who you are right away.
Why not?
The first 3 weeks of this sport, oftentimes, there are exceptions. BYU has Notre Dame this year. You reference Utah and Miami coming up, which will be awesome. But more often than not, the majority of the sport for the first 3 to 4 weeks, you're just kind of like, oh, cool, 64-7, way to go. Like, what does that mean? And I'm sure if you're an AP voter, because, look, we can crack on the AP all we want, but the reality is, like a lot of the conversation is, okay, Sorsby's not going to play. I never thought he was going to. I would be stunned if there's some about face there. And maybe Will Hammond is ready sooner than we think coming off that ACL. So, like, what does the Big 12 preseason coaches poll look like? Who cares? What does the AP look like? Because the higher up you can start, the better chance you have to actually crack the thing when it's all said and done. Let's not forget, BYU was ranked ahead of Texas Tech last year when they went to Lubbock. Now, they got undressed. They got their doors blown off. But you want to be ranked as high as you possibly can in the AP, certainly if you're a Big 12 team, because what the College Football Playoff Committee tells us, and quite frankly, they tell us pretty early on, you are a one-bid league. If you want in, now the expansion will change some things, but as of now, with the format the way that it is, if you just kind of pay attention, they do say the quiet part out loud, which is if you want in, you have to go win the league. And I don't even know that 11-1 BYU or 11-1 Utah losing to Texas Tech, like whoever wins the Utah BYU game, as I see it right now, there's an excellent chance that's a virtual play-in game for the Big 12 championship, because I still think Tech should be the favorite, even without Brendan Sorsby, even with the questions around Will Hammond. I mean, they updated the transfer portal rankings. They still have the number one transfer portal class in the Big 12 and one of the top 5 in the country, even without their quarterback. But will an 11-1 either BYU, let's give either BYU or Utah the benefit of the doubt. Whoever wins the rivalry game this year enters the Big 12 championship game, let's just say with one loss. And both teams avoid Tech this year. I still think if you lose to Tech and you have 2 losses, you're probably not going to the CFP until it's expanded.
Yeah, I don't think that's a hot take at all. I don't think that you're going to get any messaging that's going to convince me otherwise. Like I got duped. I fell for it last year when the first college football playoff rankings came out, and there were 3 teams in the Big 12 within striking distance.
Yeah,
I was like, oh, this is what the committee is telling you, that they actually like the Big 12 conference more than we had previously thought. And they were doing exactly what they were trying to do by keeping me on the hook, by keeping all of you on the hook, by dangling that carrot out there. Like, yep, make sure you're watching closely next week's release show. Make sure you're watching closely all these games this season, because it matters. If you can win your way through this thing, we're actually going to put you in. And it was like, no, we never thought so.
Nope. And you know, I'm starting to believe, even if there's some Big 12 representation in the room, whether it's Mark Harlan, another athletic director or whatever.
It's Mark Harlan right now.
Yeah, I believe that it is. I'm starting to believe that with how powerful the Big 10 and the SEC clearly are, if you're a Big 12 voice, if you're an ACC voice, you want to play nice with them so eventually you can be a part of them, as opposed to push back on their process, if that makes sense. I mean, there's not enough wailing and gnashing of teeth Mark Harlan or Brett Yormark can do to convince the 2 conferences that are running this sport that their voices should be heard. There's just no leverage. I mean, you've been through negotiations. I've been through negotiations in my career. If you have no leverage, then you just kind of have to play nice and hope that at some point they just kind of accept you into their club. So I don't think there's really anything that can be done to change. And look, we can talk about, the Big 12 doesn't get the benefit of the doubt that the Big 10, and then Texas Tech goes and gets undressed by Oregon. So if you're a CFP committee voter, you say, okay, well, if your best team can't hang with one of the top 5 or 6 teams in the country, and it's not even close, what will your second and third best teams do against this top-tier competition? It's really hard to argue with that logic. And the only way to change the narrative is results. A Tech, a Utah, a BYU advancing to the CFP and showing well and winning games against really good teams consistently. Because as long as they blow the brakes off of any Big 12 team, certainly the upper echelon of the Big 12, because I heard you talking about the OK State-Oregon game, and that's probably going to be a repeat. There's nothing the Big 12 can say to convince anyone in the college football ecosystem that they deserve a seat at the table next to their Big 10 and SEC peers. It's got to be results. That's the only thing that will change it.
You want to hear a fun fact?
I do. I love fun facts.
Right now, the 4th most expensive get-in price for a Week 1 game in all of college football is Idaho at Utah on a Thursday night.
You're kidding.
The only more expensive games right now are Colorado at Georgia Tech.
Okay.
Why would you want to see that game?
Mm-hmm.
That makes literally no sense to me. Clemson LSU and Wisconsin Notre Dame.
Huh. Which makes sense.
That's Wisconsin Notre Dame's the most expensive. That's at Lambeau Field.
Yeah.
So that's a special game. That's $229 for your get-in price. $193 to get into Tiger Stadium in Baton Rouge to watch Clemson take on LSU. $107 to get into Rice-Eccles Stadium for that Thursday night game.
Do the Vandals have like some sneaky pro prospects I'm not aware of? It is the Vandals, right?
It is.
Yeah.
It's actually just everyone in Luther Ellis's extended family coming down from Moscow, Idaho. That's just driving the price up.
Hey, whatever you got to do to get it done. Real quick, before I said you lose, did you see the Tribune piece today on Witt making inroads here in state recruiting?
Oh, is that shocking to people?
But now, like, we have some numbers, right, as far as how many offers. So I guess historically speaking, Michigan has offered 2 to 3 players in Utah throughout the course of the recruiting cycle. And now it's like 18 players, including the best quarterback in the state, the kid that plays for West.
You watch Curb Your Enthusiasm, right?
Oh, yeah, of course.
You know the Spite store
Yeah, absolutely.
that Larry establishes?
Yeah.
That's going to be Kyle Whittingham's finishing legacy.
Mm-hmm.
He's going to take guys from the state of Utah, even if they never play it down at Michigan.
Uh-huh. Just stash him at the end of the roster. And,
Oh, you didn't want me there?
yeah.
Okay.
And be able to pay them more. You
Yeah.
know, ultimately, that's what he has in his back
And by
pocket.
the way, you get to send like Lewis Powell to go talk to their uncle, who he already knows. Yeah. But he's just wearing maize and blue instead. It sucks.
Yeah, the West High kid actually referenced Coach Powell specifically because obviously that was a big loss. But yeah, now we actually have data about just how prescient Michigan football is in the state of Utah now.
I was in his old neighborhood last night, and I drove past the house to see if there's any like trace of crimson on it anymore.
Mm-hmm.
No,
blue and yellow entirely.
That's pretty neutral, actually. But
Is he living here?
no,
He's not. Kept the home. Smart economic move.
I mean,
He didn't need to sell.
you don't
it
have
for
to. You don't
cash.
have to sell to buy something in Ann Arbor when you're making $10 million a year.
We
And
were,
by the way, when you're being paid by the University of Utah $13 million over the next 2
we
years.
were going to buy a home in Ann Arbor, but it was contingent upon the sale of our home in Salt Lake. No, that's not how that went. Good for Witt.
What do they call those? It's like a 501c3. No, there's an exchange that you have to do where you roll over your money from the previous purchase into the new purchase.
Uh-huh. Witt probably didn't have to worry about that.
Probably don't have to worry about it. All right, stay tuned for the Drive with Spence Checketts. Thanks for listening to the Sean O'Connell Show. We'll do it again tomorrow on ESPN 700 and 92.1 FM.